At this time, I'm not given, I'm going to listen to the
I'm
facts.
gonna ask when we're gonna get our nameplates.
Making sure, making sure everybody's happy.
Mayor, are we going to get nameplates for in front of us on the dais?
You know, I don't know the answer to that question. We could set it up here. I mean, they could be on,
Or, you
It is.
know, I just think it would be
I'm going to
good.
listen, I'm
Otherwise,
sure
we're
there are
just
people who want it,
anonymous
and I'm
people.
sure there are people who don't want it. So,
I mean, we
We have
don't
name-
address each other very often,
and
right?
some people just said, whatever, right?
It's gonna have to be dark, otherwise all you're doing
I see how that goes.
so.
How's family?
It just doesn't look.
well, we'll convene an ad hoc committee to take that.
It seems to be tropical climate. Oh, no.
I'm sorry, what?
That's horrible for them.
Oh, another one? Okay.
And since you brought it up,
Maybe ask them to drive home for a meeting.
yeah. We don't want to drill into the wood.
Yeah, Germany.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah.
That came up. That came up during one of our meetings. I was at the fire board and the fire chief wants to build a training tower on that property. And I said, hold on, Councilman Burkhardt thinks that we need to have a swimming pool there. So then it went into diving tower.
She think maybe there was two of you?
No, but I think they're a special gift. I think they were made in Sioux City, right? Yeah. I'm not a big person, so you can have it.
Well, thank you very much. I will.
Okay, if we could all take our seats, we'll go ahead and get the Johnston City Council meeting started.
It's a bang.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the Johnston City Council meeting number 21-22 to order. Cindy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Hill,
Here.
Evans,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Ready,
Yeah.
Burkhardt.
Here.
Want to welcome everyone that is with us this evening. If you are here for an item that is on the agenda, we would ask for you to wait for that item to come up and address the council at that time. If you're here for an item that is not on the agenda, there will be an opportunity under public communications, which is coming up here shortly, to address the council. If you are here virtually with us and you would like to provide comments to the council, you do have the opportunity to do that, but please raise your hand indicating that you would like to make comment. And what we will do is we will take comments from everyone that is in the room here present, and then we'll go to the folks online. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and Sophia said she would come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Wow.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much, Sophia.
Wonderful.
The next item on the agenda is the agenda approval. Jim, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, item 7H is going to be removed from the agenda.
Council, any other changes? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, or Cindy, vote, please.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhardt,
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Reverting back to times in the past, and we just asked for everybody to indicate their approval. Moving on to public Communications. We have 3 scheduled public communications this evening. The first is the Johnston Kiwanis Club proclamation celebrating 30, motion passed. Did you get that, Cindy? Sorry. The Johnston Kiwanis Club proclamation celebrating 35 years. And do we have members of the Kiwanis in the audience with us this evening? Well, why don't you come up and I'll join you at the front of the dais and I'll read the proclamation. Sophia can come up. You can come. 35th anniversary of the Kiwanis Club of Johnston. Whereas Kiwanis International is one of the largest service organizations in the world, with more than 551,000 members of all ages and abilities in more than 80 nations. And whereas the members of the Kiwanis Club of Johnston are devoted to improving the world one child and one community at a time by seeking primacy to be human and spiritual rather than material values of life. And whereas, in addition to improving the lives of children in Johnston, the Johnston Community School District, and in communities around the world, Kiwanis Club members promote the development of community leaders, positive role models, intercultural understanding and cooperation, and opportunities for fellowship, personal growth, professional development, and community service. And whereas the first Kiwanis Club started its service in Detroit, Michigan, USA in 1915, and the Kiwanis Club of Johnston was formed on November 19, 1986. Whereas the services provided by the Kiwanis Club of Johnston will continue to have a positive impact on our community and citizens. And now, therefore, I, Paula Dierenfeld, Mayor of the City of Johnston, along with the City Council, do hereby proclaim November 19, 2021 as the Kiwanis Club of Johnston Day, and hereby call upon all citizens of Johnston thereof to render support to members of this organization and to make themselves aware of Kiwanis International and the Kiwanis Club of Johnston, whose members continue providing meaningful service to children in our community. And I signed and dated it, and it's in attested. Congratulations.
Take our mask off.
Just breathe that direction.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Thanks for everything that you do. Our community is a better place because of you. Thank you. Next public communication is an update by Supervisor Brownell. There he is, hiding in the back.
Okay. Madam Mayor, members of the council, Robert Brownell, Polk County Board of Supervisors, greetings. Good to see you in action today. Councilmember Burkhart, last time I was here, you weren't sworn in yet.
That's
so
correct.
Glad to see you. Few things for you. Apologies to my friends at City View and the Des Moines Register. We're not in the hallway screaming epithets at each other. The work of the county is getting done. And in fact, the most important thing we're working on right now is our ARPA funding. And with the ARPA, American Recovery Act allocated $97 million to Polk County, about 95 to the city of Des Moines. So pretty good numbers between the two. That's pretty consistent with Douglas County, Nebraska, Omaha, and Douglas County. Received a similar amount. It's population based, so it's pretty close. Our metro is about the same size. They just haven't got the suburbs that we do. But 47 million of it's been deposited in our accounts. We've used some of that to backstop Iowa Events Center and the hotel, that the Hilton Hotel up there, which the county owns, and not the only hotel that had difficulty during 2020, obviously, but we have the bulk of that money still there, and we're looking at how to spend it. So we're holding public hearings. I think the only other county in Iowa that's held public hearings on this is Lynn County. They held one. We've had one so far. We have more to come. to listen to citizens and what they think we should spend the money on. We have 4 different areas that we're looking at for ARPA funds, and they are the following: water quality, mental health, economic well-being, very broad system there, and affordable housing. If you ask me what those are going to look like, we don't know yet. Still working on it. We have work groups working on it, and we have the public coming in and giving us testimony too. We've got everything from universal basic income to planting trees to everything in between. There's a lot of ideas out there. If you heard you heard those 4 that I just gave, there may be one of yours as a pet project. Food rescue being one that we've been involved with for a long time. That doesn't mean that we're walking away from food rescue or food insecurity. We've always been involved in that, and we'll continue to. It's just not part of those 4. So we'll work on those and keep you posted on that, how that goes. But the numbers, are high. They're big. Obviously, what everybody tries to do, including the city of Johnston with their ARPA money, is find ways to spend it on bricks and mortar and things that don't involve ongoing expenses. That's kind of a unicorn, because if you build something, then usually there's expenses that go along with it. But we just have to have our eyes open about that and move on and hopefully spend the money best we can in the most responsible way that we can. The other thing that I wanted to mention, I got 2 more things I want to mention to you, and one of them is what I'm working on right now. Probably spent a lot of my time on is resettlement of Afghan refugees that are coming into Des Moines. Right now, there's about 40 here. We have 3 different resettlement agencies here in Des Moines, Metro Des Moines. 2 of them are doing the bulk of the work right now, and it's only because LSI, Lutheran Services of Iowa, hasn't really got into gear yet because they just got approved for resettlement authority here in the last couple of weeks, but they will get into gear and do a good job. Catholic Charities is one of the other ones, and then United States Committee on Refugees and Immigrants, known as USCRI, is the other one. They've settled quite a few. The Afghan immigrants we're getting aren't the SIVs, the special immigrant visas, so much as HPs, which means humanitarian parolees. Those tend to be folks who are more working class, or contractors with the U.S. government, or maybe embassy workers, maybe Afghan soldiers. I was out to help welcome a couple of families in the other night at the airport, and both of those guys were Afghan soldiers. And so we've got a small Afghan community here in Des Moines, and they're working hard to help translate and be caseworkers, but it takes a long time. If you don't know the English language that well, it takes a long time to learn how to use a bus and how to get medical care and some of those things. But we're all working on those things together. A lot of logistics. I don't want to bore you with all that, but the Office of Refugee Resettlement, ORR, at DHS estimates 2,000 Afghan refugees by next June. They're mostly in U.S. military bases right now, and the military wants them out. And we had a time frame of next June to have most of them out. They've accelerated that up until first part of February. So we're welcoming 2 or 3 families at a time right now at the airport. That number is going to go up maybe to 12 or 13. So the need for translators and caseworkers and so forth is going to be pretty steep, pretty meaningful increase there. At the end of the road, though, it's going to be a good thing for the community. We'll be able to bring in, say, 2,000 or so people. Not all those are adults. Obviously, a lot of them are children. Average size family in this community is about 4. And so we're looking at a lot of children here, but also a lot of folks that once they get trained in the language, become fluent, will be part of our workforce, which we need. One of the things that keeps us up at night at the Board of Supervisors is workforce issues, just like a lot of business owners that are probably in the room today, is where do we find our help? And these folks will come in with some level of skills. And if we look at our past, where we welcomed the Thai Dam and the Southeast Asian refugees after the Vietnam War, those folks are now doctors and engineers and coaches and teachers and other professionals here in the community. So it's worked out great. This will work out great too. We have an economic opportunity here for us. We also have a moral opportunity here for us, because these folks helped us and our military in the war in Afghanistan. And without us welcoming them to Iowa and Omaha and places like that, they'd be stuck in Afghanistan, and life would be pretty miserable for them, especially the women. So this is a good opportunity. It'd be a cultural shock for them. We are working hard with case managers that deal with mental health and some of the things that they're dealing with, because there's obviously a lot of PTSD, but other forms of depression and anxiety too. As we go along, we'll try to work on those things. Reading a lot about that right now. But as I say, I think this in the long run is going to be a great thing for the community, economically speaking, obviously, and also I think that's the right thing to do. So that's something we're working on a lot, at least I am. And I wanted, I was back there talking to Jim Clark about some things. And the other thing that I wanted to make you aware of is that 911 board has voted to partner up with the state. State gave us granted us not $5 million approximately towards a new CAD system, which is computer aided dispatch. That's called CAD. And what that'll do is connect the 3 CADs between the 3 different dispatch centers, Westcom, which dispatches for West Des Moines, Clive, Urbandale, and Waukee and Norwalk and Windsor Heights. Polk County has everybody else. It's not Des Moines, then Des Moines has Des Moines. And so those 3 CADs will be connected to each other. At some point, hopefully, in 5 years in the future, we'll be able to go to one common CAD. What that allow us to do is have total visibility of every emergency unit, police car, ambulance, fire truck, and the entire metro, and the computer will be able to dispatch those to this closest place. It's something Jim and I have been working on for a long time between Johnston and Urbandale, and that'll become a reality with this. The only issue this was we had to spend it by 12/31 of 21. Fortunately, we were able to contract with someone and spend the money before the work gets done. We've done that before. Happened, but that'll do well. And as far as Johnston's concerned, we just delivered a big check to Johnston Pantries, doing a fine work with refugees and immigrants themselves, about $16,000, which is the second largest community betterment grant that I give out every year. My largest is to UCAN, Urbandale Caring Action Network, which has a lot of the same functions as Urbandale. The Johnston Partnership for Healthier Johnston has a lot of the same functions, but somewhat larger population. But that partnership does a great job for you guys, and as you know, and the Panther is doing a fantastic job up there. So we're happy to support them any way we can. Anyway, that's my spiel for tonight, and I can be available for any questions you might have.
That was a lot of information, Bob, and you covered it very quickly, so.
Yeah, I speak quickly.
Questions, council, for Bob? Real quickly, the 2,000 Afghan, first of all, thank you for the $16,000 to the food pantry. They really appreciate it, and I agree with you, they do a fantastic job, so.
I saw Judy back there, I had to mention that.
That's wonderful. And also good news on the CAD system, the funding for the CAD system. That's, something that's critically needed in the metro area. So thank you for doing that. The 2,000 Afghans, do we know that it's 2,000? Could it be 1,000? Could it be 3,000? I mean, how did they come up with that number?
DHS believes it'll be 2,000. Of that 2,000, probably 70% will locate into Metro Des Moines. The resettlement agency said that once these folks, these humanitarian parolees settle into Des Moines, they'll probably leave quickly to go someplace with bigger Afghan populations. That was something that didn't make a lot of sense to us because our experience with other refugee populations is that they don't leave. They stay here. In fact, Metro Des Moines has the second highest foreign-born population growth in the United States right now. So at the same time we're settling Afghan refugees, we're also still settling Burmese and Congolese, Somalis, Sudanese, and all the other refugees that come here, and the secondary refugees that come here, secondary immigrants that come here without being resettled at all, but just move here to be here is in the thousands. And so we think that probably the opposite will be true, is that we'll get 2,000 people, 2,000 Afghans to settle, say 1,400 into Metro Des Moines. That number will expand greatly, we think, when other people find out that you can get a job here, get a good job here, save your money, buy your own home like has been done across the metro, including Johnston. And so I think we'll reap some benefits from this, if that experience is anything like their other experience with refugees and immigrants.
I agree with you completely. Anything else, council? Thank you, Supervisor Brunel. Appreciate the update.
About to stay for Greg's spiel, but I've heard it before. It's captivating, I can tell you that.
Fair warning. So the next item on the agenda is an update from Catch Des Moines, Greg Edwards. Greg?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, beloved City Attorney, City Manager, and standing room only. Thanks for being here. I also have with me my colleague, Trina Flack. Trina's our Vice President of Sales and Event Experience on our team. So rather than me bore you all night, I'm going to bring her up a little bit too to share her talents with you. So Wasn't long ago, I stood before you in right in the middle of our pandemic, and it's been a tough last couple of years, to say the least. Our total count now is we had 408 events cancel and or postpone during the pandemic, creating an economic impact downturn of over $330 million to our local economies. And those are just events groups that we brought into town. It doesn't count all the other hundreds and hundreds of meetings and weddings and things like that all throughout our communities. We continue to monitor on a weekly basis our hotel motel tax. On a weekly basis, it's just like a roller coaster. It's up and down. Last week, we were about 50%. A couple weeks prior, we were up in the 70 percentile. This is the time period, though, that generally we start slipping as we get close to Thanksgiving, and then through December is a slower time period. But it's still not anywhere where it needs to be. Luckily, as you see in this graph, the red line is the occupancy. The big peaks that you see in this, really going back, if you go way back to see the lowest dip of the red line in in April of 2020, and then it slowly creeped back, and we had a big jump, I should say, in both July and August. Those were effects of us bringing in a huge basketball tournament downtown. It was a 3-week ordeal, 1,500 people each week, Wednesday through Sunday. We brought in the President's Cup, U.S. Soccer President's Cup, that Mr. Pearson remembers those great days of working with U.S. Youth Soccer. We brought in a whole bunch of other groups. We actually captured a couple groups that had planned to meet in Minneapolis, but they were groups that we had constantly been in contact with, both ag-related groups. They decided to pull out of Minneapolis due to some of the unrest up there, and so we were able to capture some of that business as well. August was strong as well, with obviously the Iowa State Fair was a great success. And now we're just kind of on that downturn right now through the holidays. This last quarter of this year, we're going to be down. Our budget this year is still down about 38% of where it was 2 years ago. Last year, it was down 54%. So we're slowly gaining some steam, but still not anywhere near where we were a couple of years ago in normal times. This chart is our event booking. So you go back 2 years ago, we had our best booking year ever in our history, where we booked 388 new conventions, meetings, sports events. That dropped dramatically. Last year, we were able to still secure 125 groups and events coming in. And this year, our board approved us for a goal of 220 groups. And we're about 50, we've booked so far 59 of those groups so far. So we're a little bit over 25%. So we're on good pace. Hopefully we'll see a lot of those changes in the future. Obviously, the tourism travel industry is one of those industries that can really re-spark the economy. And I think we've proven that through those, as I just went through the occupancy charts with the things that we have brought in, starting last May with the DO Tour, and then continuing on through June with World Pork Expo and Ironman and all the other great events that we were able to secure here. On that note, I'm going to let you hear from Trina a little bit about some of the events and future.
Your Honor, Council, thank you. So 2020 was dismal. 2021 is way better than 2020. Not quite a normal year, but we have a lot to celebrate. You know, we are in a state that was open and, as Greg mentioned, allowed us to capture events that other states couldn't host, and really allowed us to survive, keep jobs, and all the things that go with it. So securing the DO Tour for May of 2021, it feels like forever ago, but just this past May. And you think about not only the people that it brought in and international travelers, and some that had to be here for a 3-week window because they were quarantining before they competed. And then you think about the marketing and the value that we got out of hearing Des Moines and Iowa on the Olympics throughout the summer, and putting that advertising value on the region and what we got out of it. And then we rolled into June and had a really solid month of June We hosted our very first Ironman event. That was originally supposed to happen in 2020. So as we think about the events that we captured and then we're able to rebook and hold on to, so 3,000 athletes, 2,500 community volunteers, these athletes that have a high household income, bring 2 to 3 people with them. You think of the spending power and the people that they are in our community. World Pork Expo, which hadn't been here for a couple years, held at the Iowa State Fairgrounds, and those attendees stay all over the metro. And not only World Pork Expo, but you think about the corporate meetings that happen in conjunction with World Pork Expo. So it's significant. And then National Junior High Rodeo Finals also held at the fairground. So those are, horse trailers that are nicer than my house, and families that come for a week at a time. And you think about those events in May and June of 21, right, as our economy is just starting to open up. And then we roll right into the U.S. Soccer President's Cup held at County. Again, that's a national event. So those are regional teams that were held or won their region for every age group. And then they met here and were here for a week. And then the USA Canada Lions, thank you to the Lions members that we have in the audience. We hosted their USA Canada Forum, their annual forum. So that is an event that was booked 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and really one of the very first events that Supervisor Brownell talked about, the Hilton and the Iowa Event Center. So that event wouldn't have been able to happen without the Hilton. And you think about, you don't build the Hilton to build the Hilton, you build the Hilton because it allows us to secure major events. So that event filled all of the downtown area, which then created compression into the economy. So that's just a sampling of, like, we did have some really good wins. The year in review, we have a handout that we'll send electronically. So we had 214 events this past year that used our resources. So when you think about the event experience side of it, so that was booked business. 117 of those 214 were because of sales efforts. So in our world, we consider them definites versus assists. So definite is like stuff we have to go after and bid on. So 117 of that 214 were because of effort that we put in. And then 125 is the number that Greg mentioned. So that is everything that was booked last year. So that we consider booked business as it may have happened in this past year, or it could be booked for 2025. So it's all that future booking. So when you look at those economic impact numbers, it still makes an impact. Specific to Johnston, we sent 14 leads to Johnston properties. We had 12 events specifically in Johnston. And then booked for the future or in the year is that 14 number. Those numbers are down. They're probably half of what they are in a normal year. So we know that is lower than a normal year. Yeah, you want to talk about? Well, yeah, you don't want me to talk about any sales efforts. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to have you talk about sales efforts. So we have 26 partners here in Johnston. Doing a lot of, as Trina was probably going to mention, all of the different strategies that we did during the COVID pandemic, not only with the sales efforts, but with our marketing efforts. If you go to our website, you'll see tons and tons of blogs where we featured a lot of your, like, Shorty's barbecue and Van D's ice cream. And there's a little kid having Van D's ice cream and all that sort of stuff. So did that all throughout the metro. Our main focus really during the pandemic was to keep Des Moines front of mind in front of people who were going to be ready to travel. And when they were ready to travel, they'd think, let's make a trip to Des Moines. So those have paid off for us as well, as visitor leisure travel has picked up dramatically as well. Outlook from now and beyond, state associations are now meeting again. We're seeing about a 50% drop in their attendance. An example, Iowa Library Association was here a couple weeks ago. Normally would have 300, 325 people. They had about 150 people. The bad news is right now corporate travel is still non-existent. You read the national news and corporate travel is booming. But as we see in the Midwest, we'll see that after effect because it's booming on the East Coast and in California, and it will gradually get here. kind of seeing the same thing with downtown. A lot of the corporate offices are still working remotely, so not a lot of activity has rejuvenated yet downtown, but is yet to come. Our RFPs, requests for proposals, are lagging. A lot of the national organizations are not taking any proposals at this point. But again, we see that changing here in the next couple months as more people get vaccinated and we get this thing under control. Thankfully, sporting groups, as we talked about, sporting groups and ag groups really are the people that have, the groups that have saved us. As you saw some of these peaks in my previous slides there. This last quarter is always soft again because of the holidays. Big events coming in next year. We really have got a great slate for next year. We're going to be hosting USA Swimming, the Tier Pro Series at the YMCA downtown, World Pork Expo's back, State Games of America, which will be a metro-wide event between actually us and Ames. That was a joint venture that we did with the Iowa Sports Foundation, the Iowa Games. So this is the national State Games of America coming in. Farm Progress show will be back. Obviously, huge impact. It takes place in Boone, but fills most all the metro hotels here. We're hosting NAIA men's volleyball championships. That'll be at the new Recplex in West Des Moines. IndyCar Series just announced will be back at the Iowa Speedway, which is good for our metro. USA Gymnastics. Ironman will be back. Trina, who has worked diligently on that group and driven me nuts about Ironman for the last couple of years. But we will be hosting a full Ironman next year. And it not only that, but it will be the North American Championships here in Des Moines. So really, really great event for that. And then a lot of different ag groups, American Meat Science Association, Association of Meat Processors, on and on and on. And I know one of the mayor's favorite groups is finally returning, the American Quilters Association. So
Maybe the Iron Man. You bet.
Talked a little bit about our strategies on the sales side, and Trina's team has done an awesome job of really, all during the pandemic, staying in contact with our top clients. We have a customer advisory board that we would meet with bi-monthly. We have all these little niche groups that we continually meet with. Their travel is back, so we've already attended a couple trade shows this year and done very well. Producing some new leads for the future. We attended a big sports show and also a big religious convention show where, believe it or not, they have all the religious planners from all denominations attend these shows looking for their national convention sites and things like that. We have great presence in both DC, where we contact a lot of the national associations, as well as Chicago. Continue to focus a lot on high-end markets like the medical markets, nursing, insurance, those kinds of markets. Although they may not bring in the big Lions Club type conventions, they'll bring in a high dollar, smaller meetings and things like that, which have huge impact as well. Come up with a lot of different national marketing initiatives, hotel collateral materials, and the new partnership model and all that great stuff that we're doing. A lot of great things happening in the community with the skate park, obviously, the new Recplex in West Des Moines, the new Grimes project, Central Iowa Water Trails, the Bucks Arena at Merle Hay Mall, the USL Soccer Stadium downtown. I think that's a reality. The Des Moines Public School, Drake Stadium will become a reality. And then the exciting news that you folks have announced here in Johnston, the Ignite Sports Facility, which we're thrilled to death with. In fact, we met with the O'Mara boys. They went to Orlando with us about a month ago, where we went to the AAU convention. AAU is a huge client of ours, and introduced them around. And so I think that's going to have some great momentum and really bring a lot of great stuff here to Johnston. So we still were able last fiscal year to bring in over 54 million in economic impact despite the downturn. Happy to answer any questions, comments.
Council have any questions? Well, the future looks brighter.
It does.
Thanks for hanging in there and doing the good work that you have been doing.
Thank you.
We're optimistic that next year will be amazing, so
There too.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your continued support
You
and
bet.
partnership.
That takes us through all of the scheduled public communications this evening. Is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? Come on up, introduce yourselves.
In addition to bringing thousands of people to Des Moines area for the Canada USA Lions Club Forum this last September, the Johnston Lions Club would like to present the city with a large check for the shelter, towards the shelter in the Commons Park on the Common, the Johnston Commons Park, to help build the shelter that I think the groundbreaking will be next summer.
Yes.
So,
Yes, that's.
I got a request for another photo.
here's your really big check. Really big check. John, do you want to join us over here?
Going up there?
We have to put the check down so we can see Judy.
I've had my picture taken way too often. Thank you. Didn't show the. Thank you.
So let's do three, and one that would probably go better from the way.
It's over.
Oh, there we go, yes. They've already been copied. They already have the actual. For the benefit, John, for the benefit, John, for the benefit of the audience, I can explain what's going on here.
Out at Johnston Commons, we have a project going on that initially we built a basketball court over the summer. We put the pad in for a large playground that is a wheelchair accessible playground. That will be constructed in the spring. And then this winter, through a lot of individuals, we have started the design concept of a large open air shelter that will also go in out there. And these donations have helped to really kind of spruce up the appearance of the shelter, and it will be really a valuable piece for the Johnston Commons area. So we expect that to start by the summer and be constructed by the fall of 2022.
Yes, and the Lions Club generosity is much bigger than this check here. They committed $60,000 for the construction of that shelter, $20,000 over a 3-year period, $20,000 each year over a 3-year period. So we couldn't be more appreciative of everything that you've done. So thank you so much.
In addition to the money, and we want to do the service also.
And it's part of our legacy project,
Yes.
which is our 75th year in the community.
It'll have a really cool line.
That's right. There will be a line regarding that shelter. Thank you very much. We are still under public communications. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council on an item that's not on the agenda? Cindy, do we have anyone online? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to public hearings. We have 2 public hearings this evening. The first, 4A, Conduct a public hearing on the matter of adoption of plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of costs for the Northwest 107th Street Emergency Shoulder Repair, and consider resolution number 21-339, adopting plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost. Consider construction bids. Consider resolution number 21-340, making award of contract, and resolution number 21-341, approving construction contract and bond. And we'll open this public hearing at 7:38. Cindy, you need to fix my clock up here. Matt.
Good evening again, Mayor and members of the council. On November 3rd, the city received bids for the Northwest 107th Emergency Repair Project. This project is needed to stabilize approximately 265 foot of roadway embankment. It also will extend a corrugated metal culvert and replace a small section of asphalt pavement, as well as add a granular shoulder. Cindy has brought up a picture of the embankment there, and we're rapidly losing some of the shoulder there, and it won't be long before the street, you can kind of see the edge line is beginning to go. We were successful at receiving 7 bids for the project. The low bidder is Elder Corporation at $69,000. It's about a 52% under the engineer's estimate of $147,000. Elder Corp has performed work in the city previously, as recently as our 54th Avenue project. And their estimated project length is about 2 weeks to complete the project. With that, the staff and engineer would recommend awarding the project to Elder. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Once we award the contract tonight, we would get we've got a progress meeting set up for tomorrow, so it would start in the next week or two. Yeah, well, they're looking to get started immediately and get it completed within 2 weeks, so. By mid-December.
Other questions?
I'm just curious about you're trying to do this in the winter weather. Is that I'm not a civil engineer, trying to understand that. Isn't that the land stable enough to make that happen in the winter?
The concern that we have are the spring rains. The culvert is at the edge of the roadway, and if we continue the erosion and we get into the spring rains, we could start to lose some of that roadway. So we're really trying to work outside of the roadway and stabilize that embankment. So.
Matt, this is Tom Cope from the council. So what's our funding source for this 69,000?
It'll be through road use tax.
Okay, so we just have an extra funding available in that account.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
Other questions, council? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing then at 7:41. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 21-339?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Cope?
Yes.
You said twice my name.
She
didn't you?
said Evans. Councilman Reddy. The first was Evans.
Oh, Evans. Okay, I did that twice.
She got it. Motion passed. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 21-340?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Cope?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Motion passed. And do we have a motion to approve resolution number 21-341?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Cope?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to item 4B, conduct a public hearing and consider the following items related to 3,698 acres located south of Northwest 70th Avenue and west of North Glen Drive. Resolution number 21-346, approving amendment number 4 to the Johnston Thrive 2040 Comprehensive Plan to reclassify properties shown as commercial to high-density residential. Ordinance number 1065, amending the Johnston Commons Planned Unit Development, changing the allowed uses of 6412 North Glen Drive from C2 Community Retail Commercial District to R4 High Density Multifamily Residential District, and eliminating C2 uses as an allowed use of 6500 Northwest 70th Avenue. And we'll open this public hearing at 7:43. Aaron.
Tonight is the public hearing and first reading of Ordinance 1065 to amend the Johnston Commons PUD to change allowed uses of Lot 10 of Johnston Commons Plat 3 from Community Retail Commercial District to R4 High Density Residential District, and to remove C2 uses as an allowed use of Lot 9 Johnston Commons Plat 3. And Lot 9 is the westernmost lot there in red, currently allows C2 and R4 uses. The proposal is simply to drop the C2. And Lot 10 is to the east there in purple. The existing uses are those of the C2 district. The proposed rezoning would allow uses of the R4 alone. Lot 9 was actually rezoned in 2014. At the time in 2014, it was the same as Lot 10. It allowed C2 uses, and we expanded the uses to R4 at that time. So I hope that makes sense. This proposed ordinance is for both of those parcels there to be R4. And the request is made to facilitate construction of 57 row homes over both lots. It could essentially be viewed as an extension of the existing south adjacent row home use. And the Johnston Thrive 2040 Comprehensive Plan depicts these subject properties as commercial. Therefore, if you choose to approve the rezoning, it would also be appropriate to amend the comprehensive plan future land use map from commercial to high density residential as well. Looking at surrounding uses, to the north is the Hyperion Golf Course. It's on the opposite side, of course, of Northwest 70th Avenue. It's zoned R1 100. To the east, opposite North Glen Drive, is a Casey's Gas and Convenience Store. South of the subject property is Johnston Commons Brownstones. There are 95 townhome units there over nearly 6 acres. And west of this property are research fields owned by Cortiva. Our code of ordinances would typically require a 50-foot buffer between the subject property and the east adjacent convenience store, and also a 10-foot buffer between this property and the north adjacent Hyperion Golf Course. The draft PUD has been written to waive those buffer requirements at the applicant's request to mimic and continue the same setbacks from the street as the south adjacent brownstone units. And of course, tonight you're not approving a site plan. That would come at a later date if the zoning passes. However, the applicant did provide a development concept, and Cindy, that should be, if I can, yep, right there. Give it a moment to load. This concept is evolving over time. It currently shows 7 buildings served by a network of private drives and a shared access with the south adjacent property to North Glen Drive. When a site plan is submitted, it has to come back to the council for consideration, and it must meet code requirements for site lighting, open space and landscaping, parking, stormwater detention, and architecture, among other requirements. I did send a letter regarding tonight's meeting to property owners within 320 feet of the rezoning area. Also placed a notice in the newspaper and the city's website. Also, there's a sign posted in front of the property to advertise the rezoning. We did receive some written public comment that was included as an attachment to your staff report. But tonight is the public hearing. There's an opportunity for anybody in the public to voice comments. Of course, it's first reading of the ordinance. And again, that would be to change allowed uses of Lot 10, Johnston Commons Plat 3 from C2 to R4, and to remove C2 uses as an allowed use of Lot 9. You're also considering Resolution 21-346, which amends the comprehensive plan, changes the future land use map for lots 9 and 10 to show those as properties as high density residential rather than commercial. If you have any questions for me, I can answer those now. Otherwise, the applicant and their consultant are in the audience with us tonight.
Does the council have questions for Aaron?
Mayor, I do, but we'll start down at that end, I guess.
Aaron, do you know historically in 2014, why wasn't Lot 10 changed as the same as Lot 9?
They were owned by different entities. At the time, Hubble owned Lot 9, and Lot 10 was owned by a lending institution. And so Hubble brought the request forward at the time to rezone Lot 9 so that they could expand the Brownstones project, but they didn't have control over Lot 10. So it wasn't included in the request.
Councilman Evans, do you have other questions?
Nope, that's it.
Councilman Burkhart?
Thank you, Mayor. First, can you provide just a little explanation as to why the C2 would be dropped from Lot 9? Is there something I'm missing as to why it would need to be removed?
The request coming forward, they would like to construct these row homes. There's no commercial component to the row home project. And really just to make it coincide and be coincident with the comprehensive plan. So they're not proposing any commercial component of this row home project. So we would remove the C2 from there.
Is there currently a traffic signal at all at the intersection of North Glen Drive and 70th Avenue?
Can we look at the overhead? Cindy?
There isn't.
Whoa. We have some experts in the audience who have weighed in,
Yeah,
it appears. And my quick Google mapping doesn't indicate that, but I was just curious if I was missing something there. Has there been any indications as to traffic or traffic patterns with regard to the resulting increase in traffic that would be produced by the development of row homes?
Generally, we would require a traffic study if there were, I believe it's 80 units or more proposed increase. And this doesn't meet that threshold. It's 57 additional homes. But we do have a codified requirement when it gets to that 80 threshold, we would require a traffic study. That wasn't the case in this instance.
And who usually incurs the costs when there is a traffic study?
It's a pass-through cost to the developer.
Okay.
Generally, residential uses do generate less traffic than a commercial use.
Certainly.
Councilman Burkhart, do you have any other questions?
Not right now, thank you.
Any other council questions for Aaron? Okay. Are there members of the audience that would like to address the council on this item?
Do you have questions for the applicant at all? Anybody before they?
I have one question for the applicant.
Do you-
Okay.
Hi, Jamie Myers of Premier Companies, 2540 73rd Street in Urbandale.
Jamie, I remember when you came to us a few months ago with this project, and we had a conversation about the townhomes that were lining Northwest 70th. And I think at that time you said that, there was some thoughts about how close the buildings were going to be to the road. And you had mentioned that you were thinking those were going to be 2-story units. But I don't know that was a 2-story unit shown on the documents that we were given? Because they all look like 3-story units to me.
They are all 3-story units to match the existing row homes that are already along, the brownstones are along North Glen Drive. And what's also not being depicted in this is there's a further rendition of this that actually shows the street trees and the park, which is in the top left corner, which will be a neighborhood playground and park for the families that live not only there, but also to the rest of the community to the south.
So at the time we had that discussion, you were saying that those homes that were along 70th, you thought young professionals without children would be in those. Is that still your marketing?
Look, the smaller footprint of the ones that are out along the street dictate that those are going to be a 2-bedroom style unit. And then the ones that are the deeper, that are down here to over here, and then out on the North Glen Drive side, those are 3-bedroom units. And it just happened to be how they aligned and how they work, but the ones that are out on 70th are the ones that are the smaller units that would be more for, again, smaller families.
Okay. I misunderstood them, but it is what you said, that the more young professional for those. Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Jamie while we have him at the podium?
Yes, Mayor. Are these intended to be rental units? Are these individually owned units? How will that be marketed?
They will be for lease units for the marketplace, and they will all be, we're working together with the current owner of not only the existing units to be managed by the premier companies, but also these units as well for the lease up and management of the entire community.
Okay.
Jamie, you said something there that maybe I misunderstood. You said that you're working with the current owners to provide management of all of, are you currently not the manager of, okay.
Will be as of December 1st.
And the reason why I ask is because I've heard some concerns from some of the residents that the current, the current buildings are not maintained well, either just structurally or just in terms of just keeping litter picked up and those sorts of things. So is that going to improve under your management?
I like to always think so. First of all, the current owner, not to put anything negative towards them whatsoever, but they are traveling to and fro. They're out of the Ames area. We're here locally in Urbandale and have management of about 1,100 units around the marketplace already, with on-site staff in most locations, as well as floating maintenance crews that come around that do trash pickup, that also do any sort of repairs and are on call 24/7.
So if the folks in the audience were to check on some of the other places that you manage, they wouldn't, they'd be comfortable with what they're seeing in terms of just management of the buildings and the grounds and everything else.
I think some of the nicest Class B plus to A type of residences in the marketplace. There's one project that we manage is down on Ingersoll that has been a little bit more of a challenge, more because of the owner that owns it and the money that they want to spend. But outside of that, everything else that we have is all not only up to code, but beyond code and kept up, and, trash pickup and exterior maintenance and everything that, would be what you'd like to see. In fact, one community that was built right here in Johnston that we built was the White Oak apartment community, and had an opportunity to actually transact and sell that here about a little over a year ago. So we're no longer managing that one because an out-of-state group is, but don't know that I ever, got any complaints from any neighbors or any other neighboring property owners, including the townhomes directly adjacent to them, that we had any issue with them as far as management.
What would these rent for?
Current ones that are rented are in the 1,400 a month range. These are going to be, current with new construction costs. I would assume these are going to be a little bit higher than that. I think the architecture and articulation of the facade is going to be as nice or nicer than that's already existing. And so I would anticipate these being in the higher, maybe 1,800 to 2,000 range. But again, until we've gotten all the way through the process of construction drawings and complete bidding and all that, that's hard to exactly determine.
Okay, 18 to 2,000 for the 2-bedroom or the 3-bedroom?
That would probably be more of that 1,800 for the 2-bedroom, and then probably even a little bit over that, maybe even the 2,200 for the 3.
Any other questions for Jamie?
Have you looked at other land available in Johnston to do a similar development?
Well, we're representing the owner, so they had already owned and purchased this ground. I have looked around outside of this, and it's not that easy to find a piece of ground that you can zone, for this type of unit and scale, around the area. But again, the owner already owned this, and we came into it after it's been purchased for several years. So.
Any other questions? Okay. Don't go away, Jamie. We'll probably have more.
If I could do, I'll add a couple
Okay,
things
sure,
too. Is
sure.
it one thing that I think it's important to think about right now, and I think for most of you that know me, know that I'm also not only a commercial builder, but also a home builder. We build residences in range of probably 300,000 to well over $2 million in the marketplace. In fact, we have some of those owners, one of them that we're building a $2 million home that's living in a rental community right now in Johnston. And as an interim housing piece. And that's one thing that we are finding across the city, and really it's happening across the country, is there are many people that are moving around, can't find the residences that they want to move to. So they're having to move to new construction, which takes an extremely long time right now due to logistical nightmares. And as far as, there's just not enough bodies as far as the trade partners out there to be able to build these homes. So the rental communities are actually thriving, and it's actually one of the largest, if you talk to the NAHB, it's one of the largest growing segments in the country is entire rental, single family and townhome communities. As people are gravitating towards those as they maybe look at the place that they decide where they want to put down roots and where they want to build their home, but they can't get one right now because there's so few homes in the marketplace. We are, as a city, as a metropolitan area, we would normally have 5,000 to 7,000 homes available to buyers in the marketplace. Today, we are at 2,200, and that is up from 1,600 that was the low in the middle of the summer. That's why you might have heard rumors of people with bidding wars and people getting 50 offers on homes and things like, people buying homes sight unseen. That is the way the marketplace has been this year, and it's still homes. We have 1.8 months of inventory available for purchase today in the marketplace. So home buyers can't find what they really want. So rental is actually becoming a much more prevalent housing type for many people until they can get to the home they want. And with construction costs driving up, some of them, it's driving affordability away from the ability for them to be able to afford that home. So they go into a rental community until they can kind of save up, get to what they actually want and afford in that community that they're looking to move their families. So it's just a point that I want to make sure that everybody kind of sees the whole macro view of what's going on right now. Is it's extremely challenging for families to find good newer housing for their families in the market.
Before you side away here for a second, I know we have received public comment. I know several of these folks here are very eager to comment on that. Have you had any interactions or discussions with folks who have concern about this proposed development?
Had any contact with anybody who's contacted me directly? I've heard just a little bit about it from a couple of staff members, and we'd be happy to talk further and also have the current owner involved with that as far as discussion of what concerns they might have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this item? If you want to come to the front of the room here and introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Matt Rice, and I live at 6932 Jack London Drive, which is just to the south of this development. I just want to run through a handful of concerns I have with this, many of which have already been kind of alluded to here, but just want to be thorough here. The first concern I have is the traffic issue. Every day I have to go North Glen Drive north to make a westbound turn onto 70th. I guess that's the most dangerous part of my drive every day for the last 8-9 years I've been there. And you definitely tell the more Grimes grows, more Ankeny grows, get more cross traffic right there. And that's just, pretty dangerous intersection. And I have concerns what, almost 60 more developments worth of people going to work and whatnot was going to add to that. And I can't even tell you how many accidents or near accidents I see every week on that stretch of road. My second concern ties into that is safety issue, not only with traffic, but with having those townhomes so close to 70th. I know they mentioned, it's kind of targeted towards young professionals because they're 2-bedroom units, but 70th right there is 45 miles an hour. And just have concerns over, you know, if a child does live there, they're pretty darn close to that street and 45-mile-an-hour traffic. Just from a general standpoint, I've never understood why this has not been able to been developed as commercial. My cousin's husband just recently was training at Camp Dodge, and like every day for weeks he had to eat at Casey's. And I've never understood why it's not been developed or was unable to be developed. And it's unfortunate because I know his experiences like many others. And it's kind of disheartening, you know, you go train all day and you get Casey's pizza. Nothing wrong with that, but you know, it gets old after 8 weeks, especially when you can really just, some of those guys are just bound to walk where they can get to. They don't really have transportation always. Just from a general resource standpoint, I like to make sure, you know, the city can support properly 60 more homes worth of people without straining our current fire and public safety. And my sister's a school teacher here, so I'm constantly hearing, you know, the staffing issues they're having right now could be short term or more intermediate or long term. So I like to make sure that's concerned or considered. And then lastly, I am concerned about the maintenance there. In my opinion, you can tell a clear distinction today of what's owner occupied versus kind of rented out, just a broad statement. So if this were to be continued on, definitely having that concern addressed would be huge for me. So that's really all I had on my list, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Enders, I live at 6936 Jack London Drive, not too far from him. One thing that concerns me when I see that playground, that's right up against 70th. Right now, whoever takes care of our properties now, this used to be a patch of grass out in front of my house. It's now a mud hole. And where our mailbox is, there's this, can't remember what the name of the street is, it said earlier. There's water running constantly. It's about a gallon per minute across that thing. That's been going across it for 2 or 3 years. That's got to be undermining someone's house there, one of these houses. One of those houses is going to cave in one of these days. This just keeps constantly happening. And when I first moved in, I had beautiful bushes beside my house. I called the HOA. They said, "Oh, well, sure, we'll take care of that." These are my bushes now. Coupled up, dead trees. Some people have bushes now, overgrowing sidewalk. You can't even walk. You got to walk around their bushes to get down the sidewalk. They need to be trimmed up and done it place. And the maintenance, when they're out there maintaining, they're on the flat lawnmowers. They're zooming around. They're not taking. When I first moved in, they had hand mowers that took very good care of it. It changed hands with Centra, I think it was. It's just zoom, zoom, zoom. And it's for all these young, and I always say I work from home for cable company, Mediacom, and I'll work at my window. It's 4 o'clock every night. Kids come by, get out on the buses. Then I'll go out and there's kids running around. Add more things. I mean, kids all over the place, and cars are always doing up and down those streets. With that, one day, early this summer, a dog shot out in the middle of the street. I was only going 25 miles an hour, and the dog ran away. Of course, the kids hugged it and everything, but no, things happen. I'm just afraid of getting more traffic going through there, more accidents are going to happen. It scares me. And this is my first house I've ever bought. I don't want rental houses going up there when they're supposed to be purchased houses. So, you know, home, other than just to continue our things with the playgrounds would scare me the most with those kids. Because I've got friends that have kids live right across the street, and those little girls go up there and get hurt, I would die.
Go back to the picture of the water. What causes that water?
It just leaks leaks out. From up here at this little corner here, just runs across. I was standing behind mailboxes right here. This is where our mailbox
Matt's
is.
trying to see what you're showing us because.
across, and some of these cement pads are starting to tilt a little. And it's been running that way for years. And calling HOA doesn't do any good, so. And I mean, that place needs maintenance. I don't want to see this anything happen out there, then people drive by 70 seeing this big mud hole where these new houses are, so.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council?
Jack London Drive. First off, congratulations on those of you that were reelected. I have to admit, I've been struggling on how I was going to present my opposition to this for the last month. Trying to figure out what motivates you guys on making the correct decision about the situation is beyond me. This was originally supposed to be on the 1 November city council meeting, and then it got pushed back 2 weeks. I didn't know why, but I found out that it was tied to the Thrive 2040 program. So I assumed that, to me, that signaled your long-term plan, the proposal was fitting into it. And so I was a little apprehensive on how we were going to present our opposition to this to convince you that this is not the correct way to facilitate even the Thrive 2040 program. I understand, I've read through it. It's a very complex document. And the complexity and wanting multifamily housing in this community, I get that. But at what point do we set these plans, such as the PUD, and at what point does the PUD go away? We relook at, hey, did we do it right? Did we get it right? I don't know what that PUD plan was with the developer, which was Hubble, which is still in our community, in the Johnston Common HOA, they still control that. But in the Brownstone area, when I bought there, and these other people can only attest to what their thought was, I thought all of those properties there were going to be owned by the individuals that live there. I didn't know that this was going to be a rental community next year. And so I have problems with that commingling of rental properties and owners in the Johnston Commons area. Now, I'm not a real estate person. I don't understand real estate law, but I do know that rental properties within the same type can lower property values of individually owned units. In trying to understand how that happened and why S4 properties would want to come in and buy those properties, I don't know. Hubble made the decision they wanted to add additional units in lot 9. You guys approved that, but they didn't do it. Again, where's the follow-up? You changed the zoning. Was that the right or wrong decision? Well, Hubble couldn't sell those units, so they bulk sold them to S4 properties. Now, I don't understand the nuanced difference. I talked to the county assessor for our area. Those buildings that S4 property owns, they're coded as residential. There's no reason they can't be coded commercial. And that one building, which is owned by S4 properties totally, that could be coded as commercial. There's no tax advantage. There's a paperwork advantage because they don't have to have individual tax bills. They just get one tax bill for that property. But what it would do for our homeowners association would be reduce the number of votes that S4 Properties has in our association, because that would be a different class of owner. Now, technically, those two lots could be commercial, and S4 Properties or the developer, I'm sorry, I don't know what company that is. They could still build there on commercial. There's no reason they can't. Why does it need to be residential? They've already told you they're going to be leased. But if you do it residential, S4 Property already controls our HOA. We can't make any changes because they control it. They're going to absorb 57 additional units into our HOA. Excuse me, I'm getting dry. And what it also does, it gives them additional individual voting rights to not only our association, but the entire Johnston Commons Association. And so the difference could be a lot of things. In other words, excuse me, I wish we could get a map of our Johnston Commons area. If you want, could bring up the GIS zoning. Theoretically, since S4 Properties controls our HOA, can you zoom in on that area, the PUD? Is that the PDF? That's the PDF. If you could do the GIS. Okay. Theoretically, S4 Properties could decide every unit on William Defoe, which is commercial property in effect that they own, that every one of those buildings requires a new roof. I have to support that. I end up getting billed for that. All of the individual homeowners get billed for that. Hemingway and the Avenue, which are commercial multifamily operations, they pass it on to the renter. S4 Property will do that too, but they also pass it on to a homeowner. That's not fair. That's just totally not fair, because they are controlling our association to the point where it's oppressive. And believe me, that's going to be one of the ways that we could possibly get out of that association. But ultimately, there is no reason that these two lots need to go residential, because they could build under the commercial and be excluded from our association. There's no reason that needs to be included into our association. Hemingway, why don't we include them into our association? Because you don't want to commingle commercial with individually owned units. But that's what was allowed to happen under this PUD with Hubble in charge of it. They allowed S4 Properties to come in and operate commercially on the backs of the homeowners association without having to provide on-site management that Hemingway does for their property and the Avenue does for their property. But the renters in our area, which pay the highest amount of those three areas, they have no amenities and they don't have on-site support. And again, I guess I would like clarification on who your organization is, because Des Moines Properties is who I understood.
Steve, you need to talk into the microphone, please.
Sorry, I apologize. My understanding was Des Moines Properties is who the rental company is. Is that who you are, or what?
Steve, you know, I control who gets up and down and who speaks.
I apologize.
Why don't, yeah, I think we understand that you have some concerns about the way that the homeowners association is organized and.
Yes, but.
So I think what I'm going to suggest is that you need to have a conversation with Jamie outside of this meeting and talk about those concerns and see if you can't come to some resolution of that.
I don't think we would be able to, but I guess then back to the Thrive 2040. I know there's different goals and priorities for what you want for the city of Johnston. And we've already talked about home ownership. If the original intent of the Brownstone area had been followed through, that would have been your entry-level homeowners' homes. In other words, they're not the McMansions or the $300,000 homes in Johnston in the Northwest area. These are the 150 to below 250,000, which is what you guys considered in your comprehensive plan as the entry level. That's what those homes should have been. That's what they should be. If you want to put homes in those two lots, great, but they should be entry level ownership, not transient rentals for people waiting for another mansion to be built. It's a better utilization of the land here in Johnston, the land that's already been designated. We're not even getting into the issues of the fact that the homes that were originally built and utilized as model homes of geothermal, utilizing economical and green energy, but subsequently, once you guys blessed it, Hubble stopped doing that. I mean, where's the grading? Where do we ever come back and say, Hubble, you didn't live up to what we thought you were gonna do?
Thank you, Steve. Jamie, let me see if there's anybody. Jamie, before you respond, let's find out if there's, yeah, we'll respond to the issues that are raised here after we've heard from the residents. Is there anyone else? Sorry.
Hi, my name is Daniel Krause. I actually just recently purchased my townhome at 6916 Jack London Drive. So in the commercial residence there, south of the proposed zoning change. When I purchased my townhome approximately a year ago in October, I was under the understanding that that development north that they're proposing would be commercial. So I guess my thought was a sports bar, strip mall type of thing where we would have some other opportunities to go to and experience. For what it's worth, I'm a young male who's single. Be a wonderful place to meet some people. I'm a local teacher in the Des Moines area, so this was my first starter home. And so I thought this was a great opportunity, and I really enjoy the Johnston area. But I would definitely have some concerns about adding 57 more properties in the same area. I was unaware that there were so many rentals. I thought that they were all owned by families or single homeowners or whatever. I wasn't aware that they were rentals. And so I would definitely have some concerns about adding 57 more properties. And I'm not an expert on it, but if they're rentals, then they're not coming up for sale and then being appraised. And I believe that would artificially suppress the value of my home. If I then look to purchase a new one and sell, that adding 57 new homes would artificially suppress the value of my home, which would be a big concern for me when I look to then sell as I hopefully grow my family in the Johnston or in the Des Moines area. And so I would definitely be opposed to that. I think that the community would be better served by adding some commercial things, a nail bar, one of those Hy-Vee Expresses that you've got different eating options for the people at Camp Dodge there and some of the local families and stuff like that. We don't have any restaurants that are very close by. And so I think that would be some things. And that was when I purchased my home, that was my understanding of how that would be developed. And so I would definitely be opposed to that being changed to the row houses or multifamily homes, whatever the correct phrase is. So just to voice my opposition to that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council?
I'm kind of in a similar situation. I purchased a townhome at 6075 Jack London Drive in April. This is my first home I've ever owned. And I kind of came in thinking the same thing. Everybody around me owned their home. and that I would have kind of a say in the association. Anyway, I guess I'm kind of echoing some of the same things that have been said. I have concerns about adding new properties and the decrease in value of my home. And right now, I don't have the option to sell or get out before this would happen, since I've just purchased. Also, there are a lot of kids that live in this community. I see them running around all the time. And so my concern is, yeah, the same with being on 70th, just safety, because if it's anything like it is right now, they're just kids out there all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
in Austin Court. And we moved in there 2 years ago. I thought it was a really nice neighborhood. Then I realized I'm surrounded by Hubble, and they're all their condos that are rentals, and people with a lot of dogs and a lot of feces and a lot of garbage seem to end up on my lawn. But aside from that, there's going to be more rentals going in if this happens. And that does not increase the value of my property. In fact, it probably is going to lower it. So I'm definitely not happy about rentals moving in. If they just did single families, that would be great. I think this is what we need. We have many, 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 many apartments now in Johnston. I came from California, which is a nightmare. They've built condos, apartment buildings, every inch of the whole state. And I don't want to see it happen here. Thanks.
Oops.
Thank you for hearing us tonight, all the honorable people here, and we appreciate you giving us a chance to speak. My name is Jeff Fuller. I live at 6904 Henry James Court. We bought the house in 2009, and the lots next to Casey's were designated as commercial. They proposed a bank or some type of financial institute on the one, and some other type of commercial building on the other one. I went around our community and handed out flyers to try and get some people here tonight. And if you
Looks
look,
like you did a good job.
if you look, our house, we finished the basement. In our cul-de-sac alone, 5 out of the 7 have finished basements. We have put a lot of money into our property. I'm going to put more money in the property. I'm going to have solar on my home here in the next month. We like Johnston, but we feel like that this will stagnate there any growth in. It'll be great for our taxes. Maybe we won't have any more tax rate increases, but the property won't increase in value either. So we would we'd like to see some businesses in there, restaurants, whatever. If these other communities can do it, Waukee, Ankeny, Bondurant, I think that Johnston can do it too. Thank you.
I have owned my home since 2008. When we bought our home, we live right on the front, right by North Glen. When we bought our home, none of those rentals were there. They were all supposed to be single family owned homes. That is why we bought. I was working in Ankeny, my husband working in West Des Moines. Johnston was right in the middle. This was perfect for us to get our starter home, grow a family here. Now we are overrun by rentals. Our house has barely appreciated in the 13 years we have been here. It's going to be really hard for us to sell this and get into something even semi-comparable size-wise. We have 3 kids in a townhouse because our house is not, I mean, we can't sell it for a decent amount
because we have all these rentals around. The rental houses can't be sold. So that's not doing any good. Adding 57 more units to our area is gonna hurt us even more. Besides the value of our property, we also have traffic concerns. First of all, not putting if they do end up doing this, not putting a fence up is ridiculous. It doesn't matter how much space is in between the houses and the road. That road, 70th is 45 miles an hour. North Glen is supposed to be 25, but people are driving 45 plus down that, and our poor children even being on the sidewalks by our house, like, it is outrageous at how dangerous it is for them to play outside. And no matter what they say about pushing those houses towards your more younger single people, it's not gonna happen. There's gonna be families moving in there. Kids are gonna be playing outside. All the kids in the area, they go all over the place. That's not gonna matter. George Eliot Drive right there, down at the bottom of your screen. That is already extremely congested during the day with just the houses that we have. It is a main entrance into our community. If you add more entrances into that new section, we aren't going to be getting around. We can't see as we turn into our area anyway. There's been, I don't know how many times I've about ran head on with people just because of traffic anyway. So adding all those other units is going to cause massive chaos. I don't know, and 13 years ago when we moved in, it was supposed to be commercial. We have been hoping and hoping and hoping something's going to come in to benefit our area, give us something else to do, bring more tax dollars into the city. Rental houses aren't gonna help us with that. It's not gonna help lower our property taxes any. It's not gonna help anything like that. Bring in some commercial land or commercial properties. If you talk to people at Camp Dodge, they want more stuff that their soldiers can go and use during their breaks. A lot of them walk to Casey's, like everybody else has said. They need more stuff there. We need more stuff there. More rental units is not, it's not gonna help us out. It's just gonna cause more problems. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the council on this item?
Hi, my name is Natalia. I live at 6904 Jack London Drive. I bought my house about 3 years ago now as a starter home for my daughter and I. I got my assessment recently for my house. The value of my property has not increased. So that creates a problem for me because I was not aware that the rental properties are across from me. It was not disclosed to me. Them not coming into market is not increasing the value of my home. And now I cannot sell financially my place at this moment because I know once if the rezoning goes, my property will not increase in value. It's currently staying the same, so I don't see it going anywhere. When I bought my place, it was disclosed to me that one of the lots is a commercial property, and we've been waiting and hoping that there would be something because commercial always increases the value of the property. There's a lot of research on rental properties decreasing the value of homeowners because people that rent do not value the property as much because they're there either for short term or for long, for a year or two, and then they leave. So the problem that I'm facing having so many renters is that my property is not being appreciated, and there's garbage all the time, and people just don't appreciate because they do not own. There's no value in renting. So I do oppose of this rezoning. Please consider keeping it commercial and possibly finding an investor or somebody who'd be willing to look into putting a commercial property. We do have a lot of kids. We have a lot of issues with traffic. Just like was mentioned previously, when kids get dropped off at the bus or in the evening when you turn into the main entrance, you have to go very slow because there's always kids, and there's so many times that I personally have almost ran over a kid going 5 miles an hour or less. It's not safe right now for the kids, and it's not going to be safer with more properties. There's limited parking right now, and this also doesn't show more parking, because as an owner, if I have guests, I have to park way in the back, and usually it's very hard to find parking lot because renters don't park their cars in the garages. So if you would consider keeping it commercial, we would be very grateful. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council?
My name is Lou Chapko. I live on Mark Twain Court. And this is just an aside. I work for Corteva. And just an aside, I heard people talk about it being Corteva. It's not pronounced that way. It's Corteva. Big supporters in the community, as you know, worked there 32 years. So Corteva, that's the name of it. Not Pioneer anymore.
Well, kind of.
Well, Pioneer brand.
Yeah.
Company Corteva. But we have 7 or 8 brands now too. New Tech, Ag Ventures, several others. But anyway, so I just want to support what was said here earlier by the other people that live in the Johnston Common area. I agree with a lot of what they're saying. A couple of things I could refer to. Unfortunately, there's been a home that's been rented a number of years on our property. And, you know, I mean, we all know that when you own something, you value it more. When you're renting, you just flat out don't. And an example on our street, we have one home that's rented, been rented for several years now. I've lived there 14 years now. So I saw all the grow up, around us. And where do we find, the most problems? The police cars on our street most often at that rental house. Whether it's 4 teenage boys that have lived there one time, college age, and whooped and holler, if it's a couple others that rented it and had a big party or whatever. But unfortunately, it's one example, but you see it around. It's an example that's in front of me. You have this rental house. We wish that the owner would not rent it out and just sold the darn thing, because that's where we see the most problems coming out of that rented home on our street. And so, and then also the other thing I want to point out is that when you look at other communities around, North Glen, some of the new ones going up, on the west side of us and what have you, there's a little more strategic design to those. And when you walk and you look at those, and they'll have their family homes, and then maybe some condos, and then some apartments and rentals. And they're set up so that the rentals don't interfere with the homes, I guess I would say. And I'm not sure that Johnston Commons is following that good strategic design, I'll say. And all you have to do is drive around, look around a little bit, and you'll see that. And that creates a problem for those homeowners. If they can't sell their home or just the value of it, I think it drives it down. And then one other question I do have before I leave the mic is that I have a question a little bit more about that rental piece You know, is that subsidized rental housing? Is it low income? Is it, you know, what is it exactly? It's not gonna be, you know, I don't think single or young couples, it's gonna be kids. You know, eventually would be there, but I do have a question that I'd like answered around that by the people here. And just that I support, you know, leaving it as, you know, commercial and not going residential, because I think it further erodes the nice design that, you know, that was there at one point for the Johnston Commons area. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Cindy, do we have anyone online that has their hands up? Okay. Well, why don't we have Jamie come back up here and respond to some of the concerns that he's heard?
Appreciate the opportunity to kind of address a few of those issues.
You bet.
First, I'm going to just note on the association side, legally, these would be broken off into a separate sub-association apart from the rest of it, because you'd want to be able to look at measuring the replacement costs of roofs and siding and windows and exterior features to be specific to the units that are there, rather than trying to blend them over the rest, because actually unfortunately, it would actually adversely probably impact the people that are in the older community, older units, because basically, or I should say, it would add a totally different year of class of all the maintenance and long-term upkeep and care to the entire community. So it's better to keep them separate, other than there's going to have to be, you know, common drive management as far as, you know, snow plowing and things like that, as far as being able to, you know, the main common entrance, being able for concrete replacement and things like that. But you'd want to keep the two associations separate, just from the standpoint that, again, they're covering their costs of whatever replacement is over time. Otherwise, it becomes very convoluted of which ones of what age group and who's paying for what. One thing I would also comment, and just, I mean, for the crowd, I mean, I keep hearing people talk about their assessment, and their assessment isn't really their value. An appraisal is really a true market value. So I just making that comment for the world here, that everybody is that an appraiser would actually give you a market value, not really at the city's tax assessment of it, because tax assessments typically don't grow, you know, very erratically and very quickly, where an appraiser might say, well, due to market demand and cost of replacement and cost of housing, you would see a higher cost typically from an appraiser taking a look at it. Anybody who owns a home from 13 years ago to today, the cost of construction is going to be dramatically different. It's 30% more just in the last 2 years. So it's apples and oranges as far as what the market value of these homes are going to be. They're actually going to be much higher than what everybody there who is living there, what they're going to be, because they're of new construction, new type, new product. And, you know, due to today's construction costs, which are highly elevated, it's just going to be a lot more expensive to build these. And therefore, it's actually going to, you know, I would hope see everyone else's in the community value rise from that. Just in a comment to address also about people commenting that they wouldn't necessarily be able to sell their home, I would say there was also a few people talked about buying in there and they didn't know that there was rental. So I don't know, until you market the home for sale and somebody asks if there's other rentals in the community, somebody looking at buying it wouldn't necessarily even know whether the rest of the community is rental or not. And they are all individual homes. So one owner could own all of them had they bought all of them. So, you know, it's kind of each owner has their right to quiet enjoyment by law. And that's exactly what S4 is doing, is they've bought them. They've just chose to rent them out to other people. And again, with us being able to step in and help them with the management as they continue to grow, hopefully we can, you know, address any issues of the association, address issues of people who live there, and, you know, try to make sure that we're doing our best to make sure that the community and everybody is happy. I think that S4 has tried to do that along the way, and I think that, you know, again, just having a local presence here in Urbandale anyway, nearby, that we have people here that can maybe address issues, you know, faster if need be. I'm just trying to think of other things that was brought up, but well, I would also say that in design, maybe just, if you could we scroll down just a smidge so we actually can see 70th? Oh, there's elevations. Maybe just go back to the site plan. There. I would just like to say that this is just my experience as a developer over the years, that putting the homes along the road, the kids who can play in that green space today have no barrier to the road. I mean, they can go and ride their bikes and they can play and be out there. The barrier of having the homes actually is gonna, I feel like it's gonna actually help kids stay within the community. And as far as where the park is, there is a very heavy, thick buffer of trees that are along there that would help kind of screen kids in. And if need be, if we need to address it by putting a fence structure along there as well, I think that's certainly something that could be on the table just to help manage safety, because the last thing we want is to see any kids be harmed. But there would be a trail connection, which is something that's required. So there would be an opening still to get out to the trail. So we just have to make sure that, you know, where the playground area is, we could fence along there, but at least having the trail connection there, keeping it open. But you know, we want to make sure that the kids are safe. We want to make sure that all residents are safe, and we certainly look after and I think I'm standing before you as I've developed many properties in Johnston in the past, and I don't know that I've ever heard complaints about anything that we've done or completed in the marketplace. And certainly, if so, I've always been quick to address anything that a neighboring concern might have. So, outside of that, is there any other count?
Well, Jamie, I don't know if you can answer this question. We heard several of the residents say, you know, that they understood that commercial was going to go in there. And they just seem unconvinced that, you know, someone didn't try hard enough, and that commercial can in fact be successful there. Can you address that at all?
Sure. Just to give you some background and perspective too, I also do commercial development, and I've done probably built 5 million square feet in my career as a developer. And knowing different retailers and knowing what they're looking for, there are too many better opportunities for these companies to be up and down the Merle Hay corridor, to be close to Ignite, to be close in front of the City Hall complex. Other opportunities where it's going to draw more traffic that is local and regional in nature, that it's just not attracting the retailers there. It doesn't have the, you know, with Corteva, there's no rooftops there to be able to feed into it. And Camp Dodge, as much as there's lots of people there, there's still lots of open ground there that doesn't create the rooftops that it needs to be able to create a good commercial node in this area. And even Hyperion, you know, there's not people there. And so it doesn't create that opportunity for the commercial demand where it's already happening down the Merle Hay corridor, where a lot of people are commuting to get to work. It just tends to be that's where we're seeing people want to gravitate towards. When we talk to retailers, I was just working with a local restaurateur who was looking at the marketplace, and the first thing they wanted to be is closer to the interstate, closer to the Ignite Sports Complex, because that's where they can get the most public to be able to come to their establishment. So if it hasn't developed over this period of time, I mean, there's a reason that the lending institution decided to give it up. They felt like their opportunity for them to grow market share was lessened there than it might be on another busier road, with more other like kind commercial in the area. C-store like Casey's is a little bit different because it becomes, you know, a running to and from as you're on your way to something, more so than a destination like maybe a sit-down restaurant or something of that sort that might happen on this other commercial parcel. So if it hasn't happened in, I believe it's close to 15 years on this parcel, it's probably not going to happen at any time soon. And just the fact of the world of, how retailers are looking to locate, and COVID didn't help any either. So that's an unfortunate situation that we all find ourselves in.
Else have any questions for Jamie?
Jamie, can I ask you just a couple more questions? I just want to understand your current role. You do not own the property itself.
You're hired by the owner to help put together, construct a plan, a budget, and help carry that out and to construct and to lease and manage the property.
Okay, so you would serve as the primary construction entity as well as the property management entity. And how, if you're willing to share, and maybe I should preface it based on my concern, you had indicated already earlier tonight that your organization recently sold the White Oak properties to an out-of-state firm. And yet you've already indicated today, we're local, we're Urbandale, we're right here, and yet it's already, White Oak has been there 2 years, maybe, something 3.
2017.
Yeah, pandemic kind of makes my brain fog here a little bit. But the reality is you no longer have ownership in that. So if you're willing to share with us, how long is your contract to do property management for S4?
Our management contracts are only year to year.
Okay.
So if we don't perform in a function that the owner sees fit, then we can be removed. However, it is extremely difficult to kind of make those transitions to other companies. So it takes a long time to set everything up in systems and work through all that. So, and I believe that we'll be here for some time. And again, only reason that White Oak was transacted was as a developer. You can't own them all. You have to have cash flow to be able to go from one to the next, to be able to, basically take the dollars, reinvest in another project and keep growing, because we are a development entity. And so we tend to sell them when the time is right, and then we go and reinvest and do it all over again.
As of December 1st, you will be the property management entity, though, for the current S4 properties, correct? Do you have already in place a tick list of things that need to happen or will happen with regard to your management of those properties?
Our management team is actually assessing all the properties right now. There's more than just this. It's multiple properties that are spread out. So they're going through and assessing what needs to be handled or what needs to be put on a capital list for maybe the spring, because sometimes it doesn't make sense to go replace a tree right now and you wait till the winter is over and then you come and replace it. So, I mean, there's things like that that get assessed and then go into the capital and the budget for the owner for the next year.
Does the team involve current residents or the association and input for those types of projects?
We would typically have the owners association would weigh in on what things need to be done. And, in some cases where, like in this one, this would be entirely all rental. So basically the residents there don't vote in an association because they'd all be owned by S4. The ones where there are actually owners that are outside of S4 would have a voice in the association of what needed to be done and what needs to be carried out.
And so your team is currently in talks with those owners as they make up their list?
Not currently, because we don't take over in management until December 1st, and we would then start to have communications at that point in time.
All right.
Other questions for Jamie?
Yes, I do. Explain to me that on the 70th Avenue, those buildings up there, you said 3 bedrooms there?
Along 70th, those would be 2-bedroom units.
Okay. And some of the concerns were about kids playing on that ground and going up to 70th, that becomes a 45 mile per hour traffic. I mean, nobody drives 45, just go 50 sometimes. So how do you think the kids, why do you think the kids try to cross over the road and get stuck in traffic or something might happen to them? So what could you do to make that kids are safe within that boundary or not crossing the road? I know you said something about it. Can you explain a little bit more? How do you think that kids will be safe up there?
First of all, I believe that we're trying to keep the kids, really away from, the busier intersection, if you will, but then there would be the park that would be kind of into that western corner up there, and then the other site plan shows that, there we go, there's the, kind of thick grove of trees with, park being set back off the road, and again, that's something if we needed to look at doing some sort of a fence structure or something like that to also help and create a barrier, that's certainly a possibility. But from that standpoint, you've got all of that where the buildings are going to would actually become a barrier also, from the standpoint that today the kids would go out there playing football, playing soccer, or whatever, and kick the ball out into the road, and there's nothing stopping it today. Today there's this would show buildings there, so they're not going to be playing right up against the road where they could today, where it's all just green space.
I beg to differ on that. Every time I take a walk on that part of the road, I live close by, and North Glen Drive is where I walk all the time. And I see kids playing on North Glen Drive all the time. They're outside there doing a lot of things. So the buildings does not actually stop kids playing on the other side of the road, other side of that building. So I don't want to assume here right now that saying that kids will not play, the building will actually be a barrier to kids playing on the other side of it.
Well, I'll play devil's advocate. Okay, so consider that the one side of this property is already zoned for R4. So it could already have these units on it, correct? Would you?
On the south part of it.
The west parcel is already zoned for C2 and R4.
Right, yeah.
So the one that's really changing is lot 10.
Right.
And if that was a commercial shopping center or a commercial business of some sort, that typically has a much higher traffic impact than what we would be creating with the residences, as far as the amount of people that are coming and going. And it would be much more dangerous for children than it would be to have more residences there that are homes. So I kind of look at it from the standpoint that we're looking at the kind of the lesser of all evils here, of saying that if there's a choice of what to be developed there, if you put a shopping center with people coming and going, they're picking up pizza, they're going to the sports bar, they're going to nail salons or dry cleaners or whatever it might be, there's a lot more traffic impact and a lot more dangerous scenarios for kids than it would be to have more residences of the like kind. They already live in the southern portion, so.
Suresh, do you have other questions?
Yeah, I'm just trying to digest this part of it.
Mayor, I have a couple of questions whenever it's appropriate.
Okay.
So,
Councilman Reddy? Wait.
Go ahead, Councilman Cobb, go ahead and ask your question.
I'm sorry, I just couldn't tell. I wasn't sure if it's hard for me to tell if you were, okay. So.
Yeah, I was watching his head thinking, but apparently he's willing to cede his time to you. So go ahead, Councilman Cobb.
Thank you. So Jamie, a couple of issues that have been brought up. One relates to kind of the rentals as opposed to owner occupied, especially currently of the current developed units. And I believe there's almost 100 units there that have currently been built. What is your understanding of the breakdown of the number of rental units there versus owner occupied?
It is 60-40 currently. It is, I believe it's 96 units in total. And of that, in my notes here, 58 of them are owned by S4 currently out of the 96. So it creates about a 60-40 split.
And then it's obviously part of the sort of the questions a lot of people have been asking about, or concerns that they have, are impact that adding these rental units would have on their property values. And obviously that's whether, to try to project impact on property values is probably a pretty subjective judgment. But given your experience, what has been your experience when you add these type of rental units to kind of nearby or adjoining properties?
Well, first of all, is again, going back to whether it's an appraised or an assessed value. An appraised value, a rental community like this actually has a much higher appraised value per door than probably an owned residence today, because of the market value of a rental community altogether trades on what many of us in the industry call it a capitalization rate. And the capitalization rates today that are in the marketplace would show this to probably be what do you call kind of in a 6 cap range, which would put this at a point where the rented units would actually be worth more on the open marketplace than the ones that are actually owned.
And so from your experience, when you have when rental property gets added in as an adjoining neighbor, that does not have a negative impact on the appraised value of the adjoining owner-occupied properties?
I have not seen that, and we actually have other townhome communities where we have people who have rented their units, and it hasn't had an impact on other neighboring properties in those places, as far as whether it's Polk City or Pleasant Hill or West Des Moines. We've had different communities that have had rental within a townhome community, and they have not impacted their values, and to be able to resell and get a high market value. Because quite frankly, other renters, other landlord type investors are interested in buying those as investment properties, so they tend to pay a higher price for them.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Any other questions for Jamie?
That's everything for you, sir.
At this point, yes, but we'll have questions later, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Aaron?
I just have maybe 3 clarification items. With regard to land use, the council can regulate density, land use, but we can't regulate if these are owner-occupied or renter-occupied units. That would be a violation of the Fair Housing Act. So whether it's a single-family unit, single-family detached, a duplex, a townhome, a condominium, we can't make decisions based on whether or not that unit will be rented or won't be rented. And any of you who, of course, you all live in Johnston, you could take and rent your home to somebody else right now if you chose to. But so that what you really can't make your decision based off of whether these will be rental units or owner-occupied units. Some of these other issues that came up really were related to site design, such as we talked about the location of the playground, and of course we're going to have an opportunity to look at the site design at a later stage if the zoning goes through. And that playground can be shifted if necessary, and we can look at things like adding fences as necessary to help with the safety issue. There was some comments about tax classification. There was a gentleman who stated that we talked with the Polk County assessor, and he talked about how the property owner could construct these units on a commercial property. There's a difference between the tax classification and the zoning classification. So I'm not going to get into what the county does and how they tax the properties. But in terms of zoning class, they cannot build this proposed product on a commercial property under our zoning regulations. So that's, I think the suggestion was just leave it C1 or C2, excuse me, and let them construct their project there. You can't do that. Our zoning rules won't allow that. So that's a difference between maybe how the county taxes something and how we zone properties. There was talk about whether or not this is supported by the Thrive 2040 comprehensive plan. Of course, that plan talks about providing diverse housing options, and those diverse housing options include multifamily residential units, which is what this is, or it's a high density residential project. And, of course, when we talk about, I heard several people say they want more commercial opportunities. And I think you've heard many times that rooftops drive the need for commercial businesses. And that's just exactly what we've done here with the revitalization of Merle Hay Road, is we've tried to increase the density by adding a higher density housing product along Merle Hay Road to drive demand for commercial business, which that's what brings the commercial entities to the corridor. And so that's, it's kind of it's a double-edged sword or a catch-22 when you say, we don't want more dense housing, but we want the commercial opportunities. Well, the dense housing is what drives demand for the commercial opportunities. Do you have any questions for me, maybe that didn't get answered?
Aaron, I do have I'm sorry, Councilman Cope, may go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, guys. I apologize for not being able to kind of jump in at the right time. But Aaron, do you also have and I realize that we're not at the site plan stage, but do you have a document in the packet that shows the proposed elevations for this project? And if so, could you pull that up on the screen? We haven't really talked about that. And I think there's been some discussion about kind of the look of the current rental units, and I just think that the proposed elevations, maybe scroll up just a little bit further.
I think Cindy just pulled up what you were asking for there.
That's helpful. Yeah, I think that's helpful as part of the discussion as well. Thank you.
And so what we're looking at here, correct me if I'm wrong, because I can't read from that far away, but I think this is a mix of brick and fiber cement siding. And so the brick would be, help me out here. Is it on the other elevation?
So really quickly, I'm Daniel Wilrick. I'm the architect with Pels Design Services. So if I can help clarify what the elevations are. We've got kind of two different elevations happening here. The buildings that face North Glen and 70th have the brick and the stone, and because that's what's presented to the public. And then as you move to the interior, we've kind of just done a few things a little bit different to provide some variety within the development. So this is an elevation. Yes, this would be an elevation of one of the buildings either along 70th or along North Glen. And the red in this elevation would be representative of where there would be brick. The kind of yellowish toward the bottom of the elevation would be representative of stone. Where you see the vertical lines above that, that would kind of be that board and batten kind of siding that's sort of part of the residential vernacular nowadays. And then sort of infilled with fiber cement, horizontal siding in between there. So that's kind of the feel and the look of what would be presented along the edges. And then some of the similar forms, but maybe using more of the siding materials on the interior buildings is kind of what we've been doing. And then of course the back sides are a little more simple because they're sort of pretty close to back with other units. So. The intent is to sort of have a similar feel to what the current development to the south has, but sort of try to upgrade the elevations a little bit to be, again, more consistent with current residential design. So
these would kind of have a townhome kind of feel. You drive in on the first floor. So these are not like when you think of like an apartment complex where you have separate units on multiple units on the same floor. In essence, these are each units that are their own townhome, but is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're calling them row homes. So
Okay.
they're a vertical unit, right? So you walk in each of those doors. I mean, you walk in a front door and you've got 3 stories of space. So it's not like an apartment. It's more like a row home. So you don't go in the building and then go upstairs to get to your space. You go into your space from grade. That would be one. Incidentally, just one more point of clarification, the plans that have been developed for this are based on the plans of what is to the south. We maybe made a few tweaks, but generally, it's the same layout as, exactly the same layout as what we have to the south. We just kind of upgraded our elevations a little bit.
Councilman Burkhart, do you have questions?
Aaron, I did have one follow-up question. R4 designation gives, if I interpret our city code correctly, a density up to 16 dwelling units per acre. Is
That's
that
correct.
And what is the breakout of density on this? If I did my math, we're close, but not at 16.
Right,
Is
it's
that
just
right?
under, yeah. I would have to.
15.3 or
Yeah,
4,
right
something
under
in
it.
that range. Right. I have some very strong concerns about density in general. My past votes on other projects have indicated that. So when we get a chance to comment further, I may just elaborate a little bit.
Aaron, I have a question. Can you tell me what, on a zone C2, what kind of businesses would be commonly found in a C2 zone?
Retail, commercial, neighborhood commercial opportunities. You might see a dry cleaner there, a nail salon.
McDonald's?
Gosh, I might have to turn to the guy who knows the code by heart. Did he leave? Clayton? Restaurant, C2 is okay.
Restaurant with drive-through. Yeah. Pretty much anything along Burley Road or 86th Street is zone C2.
Thank you.
As you get closer to the interstate, you're looking at the C3 properties or properties that were once zone C3. So you're looking at, more highway-oriented businesses as you get closer to Merle Road. Or
A Walgreens, a drugstore, those kind of things would also be under C2, Subway.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, the conversation right now is between the council members and the person at the podium.
Thank you.
There was a question, I think, or a concern expressed that hasn't been addressed yet, and that is there was a concern that some of these, that there might be some subsidy for this housing, some subsidized housing. It appears to me, looking at what's being proposed here, that's not the case. But can you address that, Jamie?
Correct. This is due to cost of construction. These are going to be market rate. They're not subsidized at all anyway, so.
Is there any other questions, council, for staff or for the applicant?
This is Tom Cope. I have just one last question for Jamie. Jamie, so the owner of the property is this S4 company. Could you just tell us a little bit more about them? What types do they own other properties in the Des Moines metro area, where they're based out of? I think they're based out of Ames, but could you maybe just give us a little bit more background on them as well?
Yes, it's a family, couple of different families invested together. They have other business as well that they have, but they've also invested into long-term rental homes around the marketplace and have approximately 227. So around between the Des Moines and Ames community, so.
The ordinance,
Thank you.
It doesn't say first reading.
it doesn't say first though. I think they're all final tonight.
Yeah, I think so.
They are subject to the site plan.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other questions? If not, we will close the public hearing then at 9:11. Council, we have two items in front of us, a resolution and an ordinance, and I have been advised that neither one of these require 3 readings.
The comprehensive plan amendment, it's a resolution. Tonight's just, if you pass the resolution, the comprehensive plan is amended. The PUD, if it were a minor amendment, we could also pass it by resolution. This is not considered a minor amendment. We would amend the PUD in the same manner we would a rezoning, so it requires 3 readings and a public hearing. Tonight's the public hearing and first reading. Of course, you'll consider it on 2 more occasions after tonight. We always do, particularly with the more controversial items as well, remind the applicant that if tonight's vote fails, you're prohibited from pursuing a similar rezoning on the property for a period of 1 year. If they were to take a vote on the issue and have it fail tonight.
Okay, so Aaron, let me make sure I'm clear. The resolution only requires 1 reading tonight.
The comp plan amendment, yes. The resolution, just 1.
The ordinance requires 3 readings.
3 readings, tonight's the first.
Okay, that wasn't clear for me. Is that clear for everyone? Do you understand what the actions are in front of us? Explain again, Aaron, it's the resolution only requires 1 reading and action tonight.
To amend the comp plan,
To amend the comp plan.
it only requires the passing of a resolution, which would just require a vote tonight. And if it passes, the comp plan is amended with that resolution.
And then the ordinance,
Requires 3 readings, and it has to pass all 3 readings in order for the zoning to
and what
pass.
would that do?
It would rezone the properties to allow R4 uses. They would stay within the PUD, but the allowed uses of the properties would be R4. 16 units an acre.
Mayor or Aaron, may I ask a point of
Sure.
clarification?
Sure.
Is it appropriate to vote on the amendment this evening because the ordinance or rezoning is going to require 3? Would it be best to take up the Thrive amendment upon 3rd reading?
I suppose you could do it that way. I don't know that there's an advantage to doing that.
Is there a disadvantage?
Well, if you amend the comprehensive plan, then you've changed the future land use map to show that property as commercial. Technically, any zoning change that you make should be in compliance or largely in compliance with the comprehensive plan.
Right.
So that's why we're amending both tonight. It's currently shown as commercial. So if you were to rezone the properties to residential, that wouldn't be in compliance with the comprehensive plan.
But I think Councilman Burkhart raises a good question, and that is do we need to do the resolution tonight? Can we wait to see if the ordinance passes on 3 readings before we?
Yeah, I think you could do that. I guess what you're doing is you're voting. You would be voting to approve a rezoning that would be counter to the comprehensive plan. You're not prohibited from doing that. It's just bad practice, I guess.
We could take action on the resolution on 3rd reading of the ordinance.
Yeah, right.
And accomplish the same thing.
I believe so, but you have a differing opinion, it sounds like. I think it's best to do it up front and probably what we've always done.
The reasons that you stated, because now you're going to change the zoning for land use that doesn't exist yet. You haven't changed it from commercial to residential.
Well, what you're doing is you're saying, let's say the vote passes on the rezoning. You're voting to approve a rezoning that isn't in compliance with your future land use map. I think ultimately, I don't know that it matters. Is there further discussion maybe that we can kind of get an idea of? I know there's been lots of questions, but I haven't heard lots of commentary from the council.
So Aaron,
Just
Move to reopen the public hearing, then table it.
No. Oh. Couldn't we table it now?
For further discussion, but it's still a public hearing, but I think your point is.
No, we've closed public hearing, but we can still table these items.
Right.
I'm sorry, Councilman Burkhart?
No, I didn't need to step in there.
Go ahead.
Aaron has posed really that some added conversation take place so that we can get a better feel as to maybe how this outcome may
No,
go.
typically what we do is we take a motion on the items in front of us, but I think that maybe, under the circumstances this evening, if there is some discussion that needs to occur before any motions are made, I think that would be a good idea.
Thank you. As indicated earlier, just moments ago, I do have some concerns about density and usage in the city as a whole. I know that this doesn't necessarily reflect some of the previous proposals that have come through that I've voted against. And quite frankly, Councilman Cope's public service video in talking about density has softened me to some extent, as has Aaron's comments this evening, as well as the developer about rooftops. And it may continue to soften me, but at this point, I would not be in favor of either one of these, the ordinance or the resolution as it stands. So I will be voting no if it comes to a vote tonight.
I would like to make some comments. So I've just got reelected to this position, and that in the process of getting reelected, you have to listen to a lot of people talk to you about what they're not very happy about within the city. And one person took me quite to task because the city continually changes zoning ordinances based on, and almost exclusively the ones I've been involved with have been things that are zoned commercial that are being changed to a higher density residential. And the argument is that the developer cannot find businesses to occupy those commercial properties. And I believe firmly that Johnston needs more affordable housing. I think it's great to have families in this area that's close to the library. What a great place to live. I live in North Glen, and so I know that people would want to live there and go to the new park we're building, go to the library, et cetera. But the thing that resonates mostly, very extremely with me is we're changing the zoning, and we have a room full of people that are opposed to that. And that is the thing that I always go back to. It's a zoning change. And we continually do it because we're given these arguments about we can't sell that land. But these people bought their property expecting one thing. And they're fine apparently with this being commercial, that the potential they could have a nail salon or a Taco Bell or whatever, that they feel that that is better for them, and that is what they expected. That's where I'm going to come down. But I will say this, Jamie, I think that the drawings you showed us were beautiful. I think the elevations were great. I appreciated everything that you did. It has nothing to do with the quality of your design or proposal. Thank you.
I'm going to jump in. I must have talked to the same people that Rhonda did, because I heard the same thing. And one of the things that I kept being referred back to was the City of Johnston Community Survey. And there's 8 pages in here with a question that says, if you could change one thing about the City of Johnston, what would it be? And in this, it's overwhelming the number of rental properties. People have had enough, and that they want more restaurants. They want nail salons, Taco Bells. They want the dry cleaner. So I'm going with the majority of the people that participated in this survey and gave their overwhelming response, not to change the zoning, to leave it the way it is. And if it sits, I'm curious why nothing has happened since 2014. And another comment I wanted to make is yes, there's a lot of high density that's been done on Merle Hay Road to drive commercial. And there will be a day, and there are days now when you have to wait in line to get into Mariachi or Cactus Pops or Dairy Queen that's no longer there or whatever. And if we concentrate on only developing on Merle Hay and those places are all packed, people are going to need a place to go in their neighborhood where they know they can't drive somewhere. They're just going to walk down and get a Dunkin' Donut or something like that. So with that, I can't support this.
Anybody else want to weigh in?
Mayor, I'd like to weigh in if now's the right time.
Okay, sure, you bet.
So yeah, a lot of great discussion tonight, and one of the residents earlier sort of said that they kind of wondered what kind of thought process we would go through when we have to kind of consider items like this. And certainly this is a pretty hard one. This is not an easy decision to make, because I think there's a lot of kind of conflicting challenges. One, obviously, I think we're trying to balance the desires of the surrounding neighboring property owners with the desires of the current landowner. And as that current landowner, that landowner has the right to develop the property in the way that they best see fit, and that they believe that they could get the most and best use of the property. And if this property owner believed that they could build a Taco Bell or build a nail salon or rent property out for that, and it would be a going concern, that would be something that the landowner could have done 20 years ago. This property has been zoned like this since 1999. The property in purple has been zoned like this since 1999. The property in red has been zoned to allow for higher density multifamily since 2014. And so the fact that no development has occurred on this land for over 20 years, I think is something we have to take quite seriously. But I do think that there's legitimate concerns being raised by the neighbors. I think there's legitimate concerns about maybe having too much, not so much density, but too much of a concentration of owner occupied in this part of the community. I think that's a very legitimate concern. I think the concerns about impact on property values or traffic, I think certainly are worth further study to see if, what the impact, if truly, this project as proposed would result in more traffic than if you had a nail salon or a Taco Bell on these two properties, or if there's any kind of decent evidence that shows, how this type of property would impact property values. I'd certainly willing to look at that. So, I would be willing tonight to consider tabling this item if there's an interest in the council to, have further consideration, further look at this issue, and look into these items a little bit longer. I would be willing to make that motion if there's an interest in doing that, or if somebody else wants to make the motion, I would support it as well. I don't want to defeat the project tonight, because I think the other thing we have to take into account is that if we defeat this item tonight, or defeat it in the future, somebody could come along on that red property and develop an apartment complex, and it would be probably not as nice as the project that's in front of us has been proposed. And it could be an out-of-state developer, and it could be a lot of the things that the concerns have been raised, because that red property is zoned as multifamily. And so I think that's something we have to take into account as well as part of all these considerations. So just wanted to throw those out for thought.
Jamie, did you want to make a comment?
I just comment that the developer would consent to a tabling at this time to further study it and talk with everybody to do that, because Tom's exactly right that that could be an apartment complex on that site, and you could have a Taco Bell next door, and I would definitely could probably have staff back me up that the dramatic change in traffic would be much more detrimental to the community as well as property values. So we would ask to table it at this time.
Well, that is one of the options on both of these items. Does someone want to make a motion to that effect? We'd have to take them individually, but let me just call it up. Do we have a motion on resolution number 21-346?
I'll move to table that resolution.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart,
Yes to table.
Pope,
Yes.
Evans,
No.
Martin,
No.
Ready,
Yes to table.
Motion passed. We also have ordinance number 1065. Do we have a motion?
Move to table.
Do we have a second?
I seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would like to comment on this. I'm not convinced, while I voted to table the Thrive plan, the reality is I didn't feel like we needed to be making changes to our Thrive plan without any better idea of what's going on. I unfortunately, with regard to tabling this ordinance, don't see what the point is, in part because I don't know that a vote up or down on the actual ordinance or even on tabling it can actually remedy what the residents' concerns are. And that's what I think we really need to get to is, are there ways that S4 or the association or the new property management can actually address some of those concerns and potentially get us to a happier solution overall. I've just been kind of concerned. This didn't come out of nowhere. These concerns have been here, and the fact that there was no conversation with residents prior to this has really bothered me, I'll be honest.
Well, let me just ask a procedural question, either to Tim or the mayor. It seems to me we can either table this item or somebody, that's one option, which we have a motion on the floor to do that, was seconded. If we don't table it, we're going to have to wrap up the discussion somehow. So the only other option would be to defeat ordinance 1065, correct?
Or take no action?
Or so is that, what are the options?
Since you tabled it. The ordinance.
All right.
Mayor, would you mind repeating what council said?
Tim, why don't you share what you just shared with me?
Well, if you're going to table.
Speak into your mic.
If you're going to table the resolution, it only makes sense to table the
ordinance. Let's make it clear, we're on the ordinance.
Because if you table the resolution and don't do anything with the ordinance, you eventually are going to have to vote on the resolution at another time. And then if the ordinance is dropped out, and you vote on the resolution and it passes, you have no ordinance to vote on. So it only makes sense to table them both at the same time.
I'm not sure I understand that logic. The Thrive plan doesn't create any kind of immediate action for us. It just recategorizes our intended purpose for future use of that land, correct? So we could, in essence, have taken that up in the past. We could continue to take that up in the.
If you table the resolution, again, you're going to take that up, and let's say that the resolution doesn't pass, then at that point, I think the ordinance issue may be moot. But if it does pass, and you haven't tabled the ordinance, I think it just makes sense to table them both at the same time.
Aaron?
I think failing to take action on the issue and tabling it are probably end up with the same result. I think just because we table an issue doesn't mean it has to come back.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And so I guess you've already tabled the resolution to amend the comp plan. Now you can either table the ordinance, fail to take action on the ordinance, or take a vote on the ordinance. If the vote fails, they're probably not going to want to come back to take the comp plan off the table because there's nothing for them to pursue at this point because you've already voted down their rezoning. So in my opinion, just failing to take action and tabling are the same thing. At least with failing and tabling, with tabling the item and failing to take action, you at least give them the opportunity to decide if they want to make tweaks to the project that might make it a more amenable project to the public. If you vote it down, they don't have that opportunity to come back with another product.
You understand?
If that's what,
Councilman Burkhart?
if that's the developers, if that's what the developer wants, table the resolution and take no action on the ordinance to bring it back, decide whether he's gonna bring it back, that's fine then.
Or the same, it would have the
It's
same
the same
effect
thing.
if both.
It's
were
gotta come
tabled.
back anyway,
Right,
but to the
right.
vote.
I mean, it
Yep.
doesn't have to come back under either scenario.
I would just request from the standpoint of Councilman Burkhart, just to say that if by defeating it, it doesn't even give us an ability to sit with the owners and try to work it out.
Right.
Otherwise, on a big apartment building, it's gonna go up. Is pretty much what's gonna happen, because the investors are gonna want to return for their money. So I can guarantee you that that'll be the next step, is coming back with a building, 3-story building of some sort that they would want to try to get a return for, wait for the future, see what happens with commercial, and who knows, 10 years from now, maybe it is commercial and maybe it's not. But at least this gives us the ability to sit down with the owners and try to work out a amenable solution if it's tabled at this point in time, and we would commit to doing so.
Sure, that makes sense. Thank you.
So are we clear on what the process is, the procedure is? Okay, so we do have a motion.
Motion and a second.
That's right, we
Okay,
have a
just gonna
motion
remind you that.
and a second to table. We can either proceed to have a vote on that, or we could have the individuals who proposed that motion withdraw, and we could potentially take no action on the ordinance. It would have the same effect. So, the proponents of the motion, do you want to withdraw it, or do you want us to just proceed with a vote on it?
I'm comfortable with proceeding unless somebody wants to give me an indication that they don't believe they can support the tabling.
I'm okay with that too.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Cope,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart.
Yes.
Motion passed. It's been a long evening, folks. Thank you for coming this evening and sharing your thoughts with us. With that, we will move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So
No,
moved.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans.
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Motion passed. On to the non-consent agenda. 7A, consider second reading of ordinance number 1067, an ordinance amending the Johnston revised ordinances of 2007, chapter 157, to adopt a new electrical code. Clayton?
No changes since first reading.
Does the council have any questions for Clayton? Do we have a motion to approve second reading of ordinance number 1067?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to suggest that we waive third reading of this item and adopt and publish. And I'd also just like to suggest that we do that for 7A through 7E. All of these items appear to me to be rather non-controversial. Now, if others in the room feel differently, certainly willing to defer. But at this point, I'd like to make a motion to waive third reading on item 7A. I don't have that right in front of me, the number, the ordinance number, and to adopt and publish.
Second.
Clayton, do you have any concerns with that?
No, I would agree. There have been no comments on any of these items.
So we have a motion to waive third reading and to adopt and publish. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Jim Evans. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7B, consider second reading of ordinance number 1069, an ordinance amending the Johnston revised ordinances of 2007, Chapter 156, to adopt a new plumbing code.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Coe?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
We have another motion.
I'll make a motion to waive third reading of ordinance 1069 and to adopt and publish.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Coe?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7C, consider second reading of ordinance number 1068, an ordinance amending the Johnston revised ordinances of 2007, Chapter 154, to adopt a new fuel gas code.
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Coe?
Yes.
Motion passed. Do we have another motion?
I move to waive the third reading.
And to adopt and publish. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Coe?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes. Why is
Motion passed.
the dramatic thing?
Item 7, is it 7? Yeah, 7D. Consider second reading of ordinance number 1070, an ordinance amending the Johnston revised ordinances of 2007, Chapter 158, to adopt a new mechanical code.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Coe?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Motion passed. Do we have
I'll make a
another
motion to
Go ahead.
waive ordinance, third reading of ordinance 1070 and adopt and publish.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Coe?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Motion passed. 7E, consider the second reading of ordinance number 1071, an ordinance amending the Johnston revised ordinances of 2007, Chapter 65, to modify locations of stop intersections.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Coe?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Motion passed.
And I'll make a motion to waive third reading of ordinance number 1071 and to adopt and publish.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Coe?
Yes.
Motion passed. 7F, consider resolution number 21-328, a resolution approving a temporary use permit to operate a drive-up COVID-19 testing facility at 6426 Merle Hay Road.
Evening. Center for COVID Control LLC has submitted a temporary use permit application for a drive-up testing facility for COVID-19. This property is zoned a mixed-use center. It's the site of St. Paul Presbyterian Church, just up the street here on Merle Hay Road. The use of within the mixed-use center district, we do allow medical facilities. However, medical facilities is not listed as a administrative approval temporary use permit. That's why it's in front of you for council approval. The applicant has provided a site plan. They intend to set up their facility in the rear parking lot, and they have provided an architecture. It's like a storage office combo, but patients would be within their vehicles, so that facility would just be for supplies and staffing in between tests. I believe the applicant is available online if there's questions, but staff is recommending approval.
Couple of questions. Is that a drive-through?
I believe they would just be operating park into like a parking spot, and the tech comes in, window rolls down, takes their swab, they go back.
And how long is the temporary use for?
It'd be valid for 6 months.
And they're willing to do it for 6 months?
I believe they have 4 months is what they were looking at. But our temporary use permits are for 6 months.
Okay. Another question is not relevant to here, but why now here?
I would defer to the applicant as to why and now.
I'm just curious, is there if they do they have some data to say that there'll be more COVID cases and that's why they're doing testing centers here? Because we never had it last year.
I don't know.
Could the applicant answer that question? Is it there?
I believe it's Denny.
Go ahead, Denny.
No.
Denny, you were the applicant for this, correct, or no? Maybe they're not.
Denny Janeski is the temporary use permit.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I'm not hearing them.
That'd be nice to have that answer. I'm just wondering if they have enough, if they have some data to say that the COVID will peak again, that could be relevant to a lot of decisions we could make.
I think the challenge of it is, Councilman Ruddy, with all due respect, I think trying to predict COVID might be the most dangerous thing that anybody could try to do at this point.
Right.
It is so unpredictable. So but obviously I'm not saying that shouldn't be an important factor in anybody's decision making, but at this point, trying to make any sort of prediction, I think it's a hard question to ask somebody to do.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Councilman Cope. I was just asking that to get some data information. But
Sure, fair enough.
Not relevant to approving this or not.
And maybe Clayton can follow up and find out if there's an answer to that question. Why now?
I will certainly follow up on that.
Clayton, can I ask a couple other questions though regarding that trailer? How will it be, or will it have power to it? Will it have heat to it? Will it have a restroom or be plumbed in any way?
It will have power via electrical cord connecting to an existing power, which is acceptable by the building department. It will have heat. Restroom facilities are provided within the church facility.
Do you know what type of heat fuel they will use?
Electrical heaters.
Right. And how, is there an electrical box or some sort of either interconnect at the back of that parking area?
My understanding is they connect to the existing structure there on the southwest portion of their site. On the site plan, they show a line connecting from there.
I see that. Okay, so that's where they'll be drawing from.
That is what has been explained to me.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Clayton? If not, do we have a motion to approve resolution number 21-328?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Cope,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart.
Yes.
Motion passed. 7G, consider second reading of ordinance number 1066, amending the West Park PUD to allow indoor overnight boarding of domestic animals on Lot 20, West Park Office Plaza Plat 1, 5705 West Parkway.
There's been no changes to this since the first reading. Typically, we don't waive a third reading on a rezoning, but the applicant is here with the audience tonight, sat through a rather lengthy public hearing. So if you saw fit, to waive third reading, I'm sure they would not object.
Any questions for Aaron?
Yeah, last time we had the discussion, there was a lot of people who came by and asked a few questions about this noise, about things. So was that resolved in a way that
I know that we talked about addressing it further with the site plan. Have you given any more consideration of the type of fencing that would be used on the project?
We decided opaque fence or solid fencing. They have the option of making it taller if they want. New landscaping around.
Okay.
We take those sort of
And there is that other stage that we have to go through for site plan approval where we can make sure that there's adequate measures in place.
Fair enough.
I forget where we're at. Did we get a motion?
No, there's been no motion made.
Okay,
So moved.
we have a motion now
Second.
and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe.
Yes, but I do not favor waiving third reading. That was what I was going to try to say.
And that, this would be, your comment is very timely then. So we'll see you next time.
Sorry.
Maybe we can move you up on the agenda next time.
Yeah.
Item 7I, consider the following items related to 31.67 acre outlot Z of Windsor Park Office Park Plat 1, located south of Windsor Parkway and west of Thomas Avenue. Resolution 21-335, approving Windsor Office Park Plat 2, a minor subdivision creating 21.67 acre outlot 6 and 9.99 acre outlot Y for future development. Resolution 21-336, approving a minor amendment to the Windsor Office Park PUD to remove section 33.L of Ordinance 724 regarding the requirement to dedicate 3.75 acres of parkland upon subdivision of parcel D within the Windsor Office Park PUD. Resolution 21-337, approving an amendment to the Johnston Thrive 2040 comprehensive plan to eliminate the planned through connection of Northwest Windsor Drive to Windsor Parkway as depicted in the Windsor Parkway and Northwest 86th Street focus area of the future land use plan and the major streets improvement plan. Aaron.
In October, the city council approved a rezoning of nearly 22 acres in the Windsor Office Park from PUD allowing PC Professional Commerce Park district uses to PUD allowing detached single-family association homes. And tonight's action is related to that rezoning. If you would now pull up the final plat, this is the property here. It's related to the rezoning. The 22 acres that were rezoned are part of a larger parcel. That larger parcel is 32 acres. The property owner needs to split that 22 acres from the larger property to allow it to be sold to the developer of the association home project. We do that through minor subdivision, which is what you're considering tonight. This Windsor Office Park Plat 2 subdivides 31.67 acre outlot Z into two new outlots. One is the 21.67 acre property that was previously rezoned. And there's also new 9.99 acre outlot Y. As outlots, neither property can be developed without further platting action. And this, the plat itself is pretty procedural, but there are also a few cleanup items we need to address tonight. There's an issue related to parkland dedication that the property owner would like to address. Ordinance 724 establishing the Windsor Office Park PUD requires dedication of 3.75 acres of parkland to be dedicated from the property we're subdividing tonight. And the dedication requirement was necessary when the PUD was written in 2005 because there was no area identified for parks in the general area. Since 2005, the city has purchased property adjoining the Greenwood Hills Greenbelt and developed the Greenwood Hills Park. The park and Greenbelt together total almost 12 acres, which has effectively provided for the parkland needs of the area. When we approved the rezoning, we noted we didn't intend to collect on that dedication requirement, and the property owner has requested an amendment to remove the dedication language from the PUD, and that is the subject of Resolution 21-336. It's a minor amendment to the PUD to remove the requirement to dedicate 3.75 acres of parkland. Also, you'll remember when we discussed the association home rezoning, we talked a great deal about the possibility of connecting Northwest Windsor Drive to Windsor Parkway. And ultimately, the council opted not to require that through road connection with the rezoning. However, the property owner would like some assurance that the council will not require that through connection when the site plan is approved or when the east adjacent property is developed. And he's asked for an amendment to the comprehensive plan to remove references to a through street connection. And that's the subject of Resolution 21-337. It approves such an amendment to remove those references to a through street connection in the comprehensive plan. So you've got three items tonight. One approves the minor subdivision. One amends the PUD to remove the parkland dedication requirement for 3.75 acres of parkland. And finally, the amendment to the comprehensive plan to remove language alluding to a through connection.
Scholars, have any questions for Aaron?
I have a question. So I have no opposition to the platting of the outlot X and Y. My issue is this outlot X is going to be a higher density residential, whereas before it was zoned commercial. Zoned commercial would have had a 50-foot buffer along the west side and the south side of this outlot X. By zoning it to multifamily residential, the buffer requirements are dramatically changed. And I'm not sure that I'm very crazy about that. Now, you talked about how the owner wants to have the city assure them we're not going to require a future road. We're going to take away this requirement for parkland. Is there anything we can do to encourage more buffering to make up for the fact, more landscape, I mean, to make up for the fact we're going to be requiring less area for buffer? And I apologize if this is kind of a weird question, but I've been thinking about it since we've talked about this before. So this is my concern, that we had something that we promised these people they were going to have 50-foot of buffer before they had a commercial area, and now it's going to be, 20, 15 feet? How do we compensate that?
It might have been best addressed with the rezoning, but if you chose to address it now, Resolution 21336 is a minor amendment to the PUD to remove the language regarding parkland dedication. You could amend the resolution to require additional buffering. He's right. Because this is, we did establish a new PUD with, when we removed these two parcels, we didn't just change the PUD as it's related to these two parcels, we took them out of the PUD and created their own PUD. You could, let's see. Well, but you can still, yeah, it probably would have been best addressed with the rezoning.
Aaron, this is Councilman Cope. Could we do it with when we do the site plan for when outlaw X? Because we'll come back with some sort of site plan or a.
Yeah, it will have to come back for a site plan, but I don't know that you can require it at that time, but you could encourage it at that time.
Right, I understand the difference.
She's looking for a way to require it.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is that I don't even, because the reason I bring it up is that the owner who doesn't want the road going through, I'm just following up with the point that Councilperson Martin made, is not the owner of Outlot X. Can you please go back to the previous screen, because that's helpful. It's the owner of Outlot Y. And so or the person who's going to be selling Outlot X to. So I'm not sure we have the owner of Outlot X or the potential owner, the people who did it's from Caliper. I don't even know if they're on the call tonight. And so I would suggest and I would fully support what you're saying, Councilperson Martin, but I'd like them to be part of the discussion, and as opposed to us imposing on them tonight without them being able to be part of that discussion. And so I'm certainly would be supportive, and unless they come back and give us some really, really solid reason why they shouldn't do it. But I would be inclined to support the position you're saying, but I don't feel comfortable doing it tonight, given that they really had no notice that this would be part of the discussion tonight. And I think it's better as part of the site plan discussion.
Did we have a comment from the audience?
Yeah, Mike, I just wanted to clarify one item. Thank you. Dean Roger with CDA 3405. Saw these cross roads drive here on behalf of Caliber. The only thing I wanted to mention just real quick, just to make sure we're all on the same page, the existing buffer was a 30-foot buffer shown on the final plat, which is pretty much the same buffer we're going to have with our project, to be further clarified with the site plan process. We've got 4 units per acre, so it's not an apartment project or anything, single unit. villas, and if you look at the old final plat, there was other setbacks and things on it, but the actual buffer that was shown on the existing final plat is a 30-foot buffer, and that's pretty much what we're gonna have along the west side and the south side, as the PUD documents had stated before. So it is something we'd definitely rather go through those details with the site plan once we look at the terrain we're dealing with, the existing trees we're gonna try to save in certain locations and all those details, but I just wanted to make sure and point out the final plat said 30-foot buffer.
Well, that does make quite a bit of difference. So I appreciate the offer to have conversations with the council at the appropriate time about the landscape.
The PUD amendment we went through has
Change the land use.
changed the land use, so all of the setbacks and the requirements that were shown in the original final plat will be changed with the new PUD amendment that we went through. So what happened before is there was a PUD for the entire property. All those items were locked in place. This is all final platted. Now we changed land use, so we've got new PUD requirements. It's kind of a moot point because we have to replat this anyway. These are just outlots and there's no way we can.
That
do
is true
anything.
as well. We will have to come back and replat it before they can build on it. But it might be a legal question because if there's an existing buffer there, which you can see on the easternmost lot, it's showing an existing 30-foot buffer. I imagine that carried over all the way across the bottom. And because, in my opinion, because it was a platted easement, yes, it could change, you can change the setbacks, but we've had issues where a setback's shown up on a plat, and that's, I don't want to confuse this any more than it already is. Perhaps if we take up the issue with the next platting action, but with the knowledge that you'll be looking for some type of buffering along these property lines when the site plan comes through and the plat.
Something that balances out an expectation, and I'm not a zoning person, but normally I would have expected a fairly dense buffer between a commercially zoned property and a residentially one. And that now we have a multifamily residential next to single-family residential.
In it, yeah.
And that normally the buffer requirements are less.
But also the product has changed as well. I mean, it's no longer a commercial product there, so there's not the need for as large of a buffer. It's not, when you say multifamily, really it's a medium density residential product because it's like, I think it was 4, help me out with the units per acre. 4 units per acre rather than like a 16-unit multifamily project. So really I do see there might be need. There was an expectation there was a buffer there. I don't know that it needs to be.
I like that. I like that wording. There was an expectation of a buffer there. I'm going to be expecting a buffer in the next of some sort in the final plans. I would be happy with that. Okay.
There's gonna be open space landscaping requirements, so there's gonna be a lot of landscaping required with this development already.
And I would also say protecting and preserving landscape will get you a lot of credit too.
I need a little bit more clarification. I apologize for belaboring this. However, this outlot replatting does not, in no way ever required a buffer or easement, but it cannot even include one, even if we wanted to at this point?
Ask that question one more time for me.
The current platting of the two outlots does not include any kind of buffer easement, correct?
It's not a requirement to have one on there. In my opinion, because there was a previously platted easement and we've taken no action to nullify that easement, it should be carried over on this plat. But that's probably a legal question that I'd have to pursue outside of this venue. That I think that existing easement should probably be shown on the plat.
Not just on outlet Y, but on outlet X as well?
Right.
Okay.
But that's not shown. I know they do want to close on this property. They don't desire to table this tonight. We can correct it. Clayton's right. We can correct it after the fact. I will have to consult probably with Bob and Tim about whether or not this existing easement should carry over onto the plat, and if it does, we can correct it by affidavit of.
I would speak to that too. And I actually confirm this with my surveyors all the time. With the plat, you don't have to show all of the existing easements on the plat. That's just where you show them for illustration, so people can see them when you're developing. People look at a plat when they buy a house and say, okay, there's an easement there. This plat is basically just splitting the property into two parcels so they can transfer it. The final plat that will come through next with the development will have all easements, everything will be locked in place and you'll be able to see all that. This is just basically a plat of survey to transfer property.
So if there's a platted easement on the property, I don't think you can nullify the easement just by not showing it. You'd have to take action to nullify the easement. That's my opinion on it, but I think that there are a few fail-safes in place. One is that this can't be built on without further platting action. You're going to be reviewing a site plan on this property in the future. And if, in the attorney's opinion, that easement was supposed to carry over on this plat, we can correct it through, help me with that wording. How would I correct the plat?
We can file an affidavit, but easement still exists even if they're not showing plats. They're still recorded documents, so if it's an easement, it's an easement.
So I'm saying, yeah, there's a book and page number there. It just failing to show it on the plat doesn't nullify the easement. It's still there.
Okay.
So that's my opinion on it.
Any further questions for Aaron? If not, do we have a motion to approve resolution number 21-335?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Reddy,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope? Cope?
Yes, sorry, I had to unmute.
That's all right. Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Motion passed. We have a motion to approve resolution number 21-336.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Yes.
Cindy, vote. Discussion?
Yes, I will not be voting in favor of this. I do believe that, and I understand the discussion about that we already have adequate parkland. However, I feel we can never have enough parkland in that dedication, and I would vote against that.
One more point of clarification. This doesn't exempt them from the parkland dedication requirements of city code that are imposed on any residential development. It just nullifies this requirement that was placed in the plat. If that may, I know that makes it's probably clear as mud. But the PUD. The PUD is requiring far more parkland than we would typically require for a residential development. The PUD requirement was in place before any residential development was proposed. This back in 2005, they just said, well, there's no parkland within a mile square area, so yeah, we want you to give us 3.75 acres. So I'm saying we're going to remove that requirement. But when the association home folks come in and they have their site plan, they're still going to have to provide either parkland or cash in lieu of parkland. It just won't be 3.75 acres. It'll be probably closer to $4,000 that they would apply to be spent toward expansion of parks in the district.
When just for clarification, when that large parcel was pulled out of the previous PUD, the parkland dedication, in essence, it still kept that 3.75 acres of parkland dedication just for that small area?
The way the PUD reads is when that outlot is further subdivided, which is kind of what we're doing right now. We're subdividing that outlot. So yeah, we're trying to get it addressed at this point in time and remove the requirement.
So I'm slightly confused. It was the old PUD that specified 3.75 acres. And we just used the wording of that previous PUD when we separated out that large parcel.
I don't know that it got carried over to the new PUD. That might have been an oversight. But now we're making sure that when this outlot is further subdivided, there's no requirement to dedicate 3.75 acres of parkland. It probably could have been done differently.
Which PUD are we trying to update?
I'm trying to, you're right now. I'm trying to amend the original PUD, the Windsor Office Park PUD. But we've in effect, we've removed these two parcels from the PUD and they're in their own PUD now.
Then I guess at this point in time, since
it didn't carry over to the new PUD, it would no longer be in effect. You're right. There's probably no reason to act on this resolution.
That's exactly
because it's no longer in effect.
Exactly.
And if we had wanted to carry it over, it should have been carried over with the action to amend the PUD.
Yes.
When we did. My oversight.
I spoke with the property owner and developer about this. What Aaron had done is he put the parkland requirements in the new PUD in slightly different wording, saying it referenced back to our current zoning code, so they have to provide parkland as required. What the property owner developer of the remaining piece is requesting is just removal of that reference from the old PUD because it has been shifted into the new PUD. So the requirement really doesn't go away. It's slightly different wording. It's not that 3.75 acres. It references back to just our standard code. So there's still a parkland requirement. It's just saying the residential development is required to do that, not the commercial development. It's really just a cleanup item in my mind.
But we're not requiring 3.75 acres of the new PUD.
No, the new PUD requires whatever the code would require based on unit counts.
And the old PUD still indicates, that's why we're discussing this now, 3.75 acres.
At the subdivision of Outlot D, which is being proposed tonight, so they would have to provide 3.75 acres per the old PUD, which is still in effect.
But
I think
I'm sorry to belabor this, but it isn't making sense to me why that even is in effect. I mean,
Clayton, I'll handle it from here. If you don't feel comfortable acting on this item tonight, feel free to table it, and I will go back and do all the research necessary to make it clear, and then we can address it at a future meeting.
I'm not trying to cause you grief or more work. I just want to know why we act on it.
My name's Doug Siedenberg. I represent the Jennings family. And I was there in 2005, in fact, here in 2005 when this was all done.
Not in this building.
Excuse me?
Not in this building.
Not in this building. The 31 acres was rezoned at that time into office. The 3.57 acre park was part of that rezoning process, and it was negotiated because parks, as a general rule, follow residential development, okay? So there were no parks in the area. The council at that time wanted some park in the area. And so as a condition of the rezoning to office, the ownership agreed to give 3.57 acres. Fast forward to today. The transaction that's before us, and please don't table it tonight. The transaction that's before us divided Outlot X from Outlot Y, divided the 31 acres into two parcels. The original zoning PUD of Windsor Office Park was only changed as to Outlot X in the rezoning that you recently did. The Windsor Office Park, original Windsor Office Park rezoning still applies on Outlot Y. So the new zoning that went from office and high-density residential down to the 4 units per acre minor density on Outlot X, which will be developed as these villa concepts and that you will be seeing forthcoming. They will be held to a lower standard because it's fewer residential properties, okay? But the original 3.5 acre park could be conferred to still be on Outlot X because the original Windsor Office Park zoning is still in effect on that. You didn't rezone Outlot Y, you rezoned Outlot X. Am I correct?
You're right.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
So the owner, the remaining owner of Outlot Y requested that the 3.5 acre park be removed from that.
The parkland requirement applied to this whole parcel.
Correct.
We removed this piece and made a new PUD.
Correct.
This piece remains. This is still under the original zoning.
Correct.
The parkland requirement
could be inferred
to apply to this piece. So yes, you're right.
As the street issue could be inferred to be part of Outlot Y, which is why the owner is asking for these modifications. Thank you very much. Questions?
We do have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I do have a follow-up question on this, and that is, in essence, it seems like owner of Outlet Y then is getting off the hook with not having to provide any parkland, even though they were for that greater area.
They'll only be required to provide parkland if they have residential, which they could, in which case they will. They'll either provide it or they'll pay for it. But that's not determined tonight, and it's not a subject to this discussion tonight.
I also feel that you could prorate that 3.75, to 2/3 is no longer necessary because it was 2/3 of it makes up Outlot X, and we could retain the obligation in Outlot Y by approximately, 1.3 acres or something along those lines, correct?
You can do anything, you're in charge. But that wouldn't be really inconsistent with a normal office zoning, which is why the owner asked for it to be removed. If they come back and request a rezoning of Outlot Y, which would include commercial and residential, they'll have a responsibility to provide park in accordance with the code. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does that help?
I'll be voting no on this.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart,
No.
Coe,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Motion passed. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 21-337?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Coe,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Item 7J, consider approval of claims in the amount of $1,439,931.06.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe.
Yes.
Motion passed. We've had the city administrator comments. We've had the Public Works project updates. We'll move to the city council comments.
None for me.
Burkhart. Ready?
Can I go home?
Is anybody going to bring breakfast in? Councilman Evans?
Nothing, thank you.
Well, I just want to congratulate Councilman
Mayor?
Evans and.
Mayor?
Yes. Oh, yes, Mr. Cole.
The only comment I want to make is I did circulate it today, invitation to the ribbon cutting that they're doing Wednesday for the recycling facility on Grime by the Metro Waste Authority. They're actually going to have the facility operating. This is a very high-end facility that I think is going to really be a game changer and for recycling, not only in the Des Moines Metro, but throughout central Iowa. So if you have a chance to come out, or if you'd like to do a tour at some point, I'd encourage you to do so.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that invitation, Councilman Cole. Again, congratulations to Councilman Evans and Councilwoman Martin. I was never in doubt, but it's good to see the results and really pleased that you're continuing in your roles as council members.
And congratulations to you.
We are adjourned.